Chapter 724. Han Fei was trapped in a space that was less than 10 square meters. There was no telling if it was because he didn't find anything earlier, but this was the only space left. The hexagon starfish asked, "Are we still digging?" Glancing at the box that wasn't full yet, Han Fei blinked and said, "Yes, keep digging." Han Fei was lost for words. Up until now, he had dug out the most low-grade spirit stones, 13 middle-grade spirit stones, and 6 high-grade spirit stones. Just like that, the mountain collapsed. Han Fei was rather speechless about the mountain. It's not even as good as my mine. I can even find some ultra-quality spiritual stones in my mine. Even if the mountain is going to collapse, you should at least let me dig some ultra-quality spiritual stones, right? Outside, at the center of the mountain, boom, a half-mermaid rose quickly. What's that sound? A half-mermaid rushed in. "My lord, a small part of the strange stone mountain at the corner of the sea demon mountain collapsed." A small part collapsed? Why did it collapse? The half-mermaid shook its head. "I don't know yet. Maybe the pulse of the earth trembled. I've just examined it. It's only 5 meters deep, and the spiritual energy around is not chaotic. It should be a regular collapse. Let's go. Let's take a look. Let's hope that human beings are up to no good." A half-mermaid said, "I don't think human beings are up to no good. Even if they're going to attack, they should have attacked our main peak. Why would they attack a deserted stone mountain?" A moment later, a bunch of half-mermaids and red demons reached the peak of the strange stone mountain. They were lost for words when they saw that the top of the mountain had collapsed. The half-mermaid scanned for a long time and said, "There shouldn't be a problem. I can still perceive 1 or 2 low-quality spiritual stones. Right? There's a demonic chi barrier between the strange stone mountain and our main peak, right?" A half-mermaid said, "Yes. Below the strange stone mountain are all large pieces of black copper. Although there are some spiritual stones, it's too difficult to excavate them. There's a mountain far from our main peak that's covered by the demonic chi of the remains of the big demons below the sea demon mountain. We can't resist the violent demonic chi even if we go there ourselves." The half-mermaid leader nodded. "Okay, let's go back." He sent out inferior sea demons to cover an area of 30,000 kilometers. It's said that Shueishenshi has come out of seclusion. Don't tell me he's up to something again. "Yes, my lord." Han Fei had no idea what happened up there. Han Fei didn't even know that he had somehow dug into the most difficult corner of the sea demon mountain. At this moment, Han Fei kicked the 9-tailed mantis shrimp's head. "I told you to dig a hole. Look at what you've dug. It was black. Was this iron? Don't you dare dig a metal mine for me. We're already in the immortal cultivation era. Why do we need copper and iron ores? Not even a dime." Boom! The 9-tailed mantis shrimp smashed the huge black stones one after another with his hammer aggrievedly, and then Han Fei kicked it again. "I told you to slow down. Where are you? What if he hears this?" In fact, at this moment, the half-mermaids who stayed here to observe also looked at each other in bewilderment. A half-mermaid asked, "Has the earth vein been unstable recently?" On the other side, a half-mermaid said, "The earth vein in the sea has never been stable. How great would it be if an undersea chimney popped up in the sea demon mountain?" You're overthinking it. Even if an undersea chimney popped up, it wouldn't come from a black copper mine. I estimate that the earth vein is quaking. It's better if this mountain of strange stones collapses. We can still pick up the spiritual stones inside. The 9-tailed mantis shrimp's excavation wasn't easy. Han Fei felt that little white might have led him to the wrong place. Whose mountain was full of mines? Han Fei found that the black stuff was definitely metal. He didn't know what kind of metal it was. However, if the 9-tailed mantis shrimp weren't good at digging holes, regular creatures would have been trapped here. Boom! Crack! All of a sudden, the 9-tailed mantis shrimp broke a large piece of black copper. Then, Han Fei's eyes glittered, as if he had found a treasure. When Han Fei removed the gravel, he was dumbfounded. It was a huge tortoise shell, a black tortoise shell. No one knew how old it was, but it looked like it had already turned into a fossil. Han Fei took out the blood-drinking knife and slashed at the turtle shell. Crack! He cut off a piece of the turtle shell. The nine-tailed mantis shrimp's big eyes widened. Han Fei glanced at him. Are you an archaeologist? Go, go, go. Keep digging. It took him 2 days to dig. Han Fei found thousands of turtle fossils. He was rather upset. He had taken out a box to store spiritual stones, only to find that they were all fossils. What was the meaning of this? Could fossils be used as spiritual energy? Also, the turtle fossils were very hard. Sometimes, even a nine-tailed mantis shrimp had to beat them several times to break a piece. Suddenly, Han Fei's eyes glittered as he saw a red shadow among the rubble. Han Fei exclaimed, "An ultra-quality spiritual stone?" Information popped up in his eyes. Name ultra-quality demonic stone. Introduction. Condensed from the essence of spiritual liquid and demonic chi. It contains a huge amount of spiritual energy and demonic chi. But because the demonic chi is violent and tends to conflict with ordinary demonic chi, it is extremely difficult to absorb. Contains spiritual energy greater than 520,666 points. Effect. Inedible, absorbable. Han Fei was dumbfounded. What the F***ck is this? Where's my ultra-quality spiritual stone? What the hell is an ultra-quality demonic stone? Han Fei couldn't help but look at the hexagon starfish. Can you use this thing? The hexagon starfish was also staring at the stone in a daze. After a long while, he said, "Why don't you try absorbing it? There seems to be demonic chi here." Han Fei raised his eyebrows. "How long will it take you to absorb it? How many days? More than 10 days? Forget it. I'd rather throw it away than give it to you." The hexagon starfish. Han Fei said, "If you can absorb it in an hour, I'll give this stone to you. Look, the magnificent spiritual energy. I really don't want to give it away." The hexagon starfish really wanted to roll its eyes at Han Fei. "If you don't want to give it away, why don't you absorb it yourself?" Han Fei saw the words extremely difficult to absorb, and the demonic chi was conflicting. This thing could suck him to death if he was not careful. Of course, he couldn't absorb it casually. The hexagon starfish said, "Starfish, you could try absorbing it." Han Fei didn't panic. Even if this was an ultra-quality spiritual stone, it only had 520,000 points of spiritual energy. He could make it up by eating a few spiritual fruits. It wouldn't be a pity to throw it away. The hexagon starfish curled its tentacles, and after a while, a magnificent spiritual energy mixed with a kind of demonic chi that Han Fei was very familiar with began to escape back and forth from the hexagon starfish. After more than 4 hours, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp dug out a few more demonic stones, but there were no ultra-quality ones. At this time, the weird scene gradually dissipated, and the hexagon starfish slowly opened its big eyes. Han Fei quickly asked, "How is it?" The hexagon starfish rolled its eyes. "It doesn't seem particularly difficult to absorb, but the demonic chi is not easy to refine and can't be absorbed quickly." Han Fei was stunned. "You can absorb demonic chi?" The hexagon starfish said, "Of course, all marine creatures can absorb it. By rights, we are all demons. Why can't we absorb demonic chi?" Han Fei said, "You are a demon, but I am not." The hexagon starfish said, "I mean, all marine creatures are demons, and so is this big shrimp." The hexagon starfish pointed at the nine-tailed mantis shrimp, and the nine-tailed mantis shrimp glanced at it. Han Fei frowned. "Nonsense. Then why didn't I feel any demonic chi from the nine-tailed mantis shrimp?" The hexagon starfish responded, "Because we don't use demonic chi to cultivate. We only regard demonic chi as a kind of spiritual energy to nourish our bodies. However, those sea demons are different. They regard spiritual energy as demonic chi, and they seem to be able to transform each other. So there's a lot of demonic chi." Han Fei froze for a moment. "Is there no difference between the two?" The hexagon starfish said, "There is a difference. The violent power in demonic chi is very dangerous, especially mixed demonic chi, which is even more dangerous. If you borrow the power of demonic chi, you will be infected with the spiritual energy in your body, and then you can cultivate as a demon." Han Fei didn't understand, but when he learned that demonic chi and spiritual energy could be transformed, he couldn't help but wonder why the half-mermaid stuffed an enormous amount of demonic chi into his body. More importantly, the demonic chi was absorbed by him. To be more precise, it seemed to be absorbed by the seed in his abdomen. Han Fei immediately kicked the nine-tailed mantis shrimp. "Come on, have a piece." Han Fei summoned Little Fatty, Little Gold, Little Black, and Little White. He divided the 7 or 8 demonic stones that he dug out. Even the hexagon starfish had no problem eating them. Han Fei didn't believe that the nine-tailed mantis shrimp would have a problem eating them. Among them, Little Black, in particular, held a demonic stone in his mouth. Crunch, crunch. Just like chewing candy, a demonic stone was swallowed by Little Black in only a few seconds. Han Fei frowned. All the demonic stones were edible, but none of them reacted. They didn't jump or make a fuss. It didn't seem to be a big problem. So, demonic stones are no different from spiritual stones to a certain extent, right? Having figured that out, Han Fei wanted to have a taste. He kicked the nine-tailed mantis shrimp and said, "Keep digging. Dig more of these things." Thud. However, in the next moment, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp suddenly unleashed a terrifying power and smashed the black copper mine dozens of meters deep. Boom! Han Fei looked back, only to see that it had collapsed again. Han Fei was so angry that he kicked it. Be gentle. Do you want to bury your master here as a fossil? However, Han Fei saw that the nine-tailed mantis shrimp's eyes were filled with agitation and redness. Shoot, you can't eat them randomly. On the main peak of the Sea Demon Mountain report, "My lord, the strange stone mountain has collapsed again." Chapter 725. Han Fei sat on the ground gloomily. The current situation was a little awkward. The mountain kept collapsing. What was going on? Although the nine-tailed mantis shrimp sometimes used too much strength, it shouldn't have collapsed the mountain with one strike. However, it was useless to think about that now. Han Fei found that the demonic stones couldn't be eaten randomly. Little Black and Little White were fine, but Little Gold was already hitting the rocks with its head. Also, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp seemed a bit grumpy. Little Fatty had always been cold. At this moment, it was rolling some black copper ores with its tentacles and crushing them into pancakes. Han Fei was so scared that he hurried to take it back. Han Fei glanced at the hexagon starfish. "Why are you fine?" The hexagon starfish rolled its eyes. "I didn't absorb the demonic chi. I slowly transformed it before I absorbed it." "Pa!" Han Fei slapped the hexagon starfish to the wall and roared, "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" The hexagon starfish said pitifully, "Didn't you tell me?" Han Fei covered his head. That was enough. If there were sea demons up there, would they dig all the way down and kill him? On the peak of the strange stone mountain, a bunch of half-mermaids and red demons were standing here. The half-mermaid's head sensed for a long time before it said, "Why are the veins always shaking in the same place?" A half-mermaid asked, "Is there any creature below the veins?" Someone said, "Is it possible that some human beings ran down there? Are they trying to break the foundation of the Sea Demon Mountain?" The half-mermaids looked at the half-mermaid as if he were an idiot. Why would human beings choose the strange stone mountain if they really want to do something? Is there anything worth digging except the black copper ores and a few spiritual stones there? The half-mermaid gritted its teeth and said, "What if the human beings are trying to dig for demonic stones?" The half-mermaids looked at him even more weirdly. "Are you out of your mind? Human beings use demonic stones? They would have been killed by the demonic chi without us even needing to do anything." Rumble. Just as the large group of sea demons were deep in thought at the peak of the strange stone mountain, a mountain 3 mountains away from the strange stone mountain suddenly collapsed. All the sea demons were dumbfounded. That was a mountain that was almost 1,000 meters tall. As a result, it was collapsing at a speed visible to the naked eye. This time, it was no longer as simple as a 6 or 7 meter depression on the Wonder Stone Mountain. That was a F*King mountain, and its height had dropped by half. Mountain rocks collapsed. Demonic energy surged, extremely berserk. Immediately, the half-mermaid leader roared, "Damn it, let's go and take a look. What strange stone mountain collapsing or the earth veins shaking, so the root cause is there." A large group of mermen ran to another mountain peak. Han Fei, on the other hand, was miserable. He and the nine-tailed mantis shrimp were hiding in a small hole no larger than 2 square meters. The nine-tailed mantis shrimp was forced to shrink a lot, and Han Fei even squatted on the ground. Gulp! Han Fei swallowed. Damn it! The quality of this lousy mountain is too low. I'm just digging a hole. Why is there no end to it? Looking at the unstable cave that was full of cracks, Han Fei felt like it could collapse at any moment. He might even turn into a fossil. Hurry up! Nine-tailed mantis shrimp, stop hammering. Dig. If you hammer this mountain down, your master will bury you alive. The nine-tailed mantis shrimp began to dig, and Han Fei did something too. He refined a pickaxe and dug with the nine-tailed mantis shrimp. This is too King scary. I'd better dig a hole and go out. As for the spiritual stones he saw, Han Fei was almost speechless. This box of spiritual stones was basically low-quality spiritual stones. Adding them up, he had less than 5 million points of spiritual energy. If he had known that there were so few spiritual stones, he wouldn't have dug at all. He could have eaten spiritual fruits for a few days. Okay? Clang, 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 clang. Han Fei also began to work hard. The demonic stones could still be dug, but Han Fei directly threw them into Forge the Universe. He didn't dare to use them now. If he absorbed them and then launched a sacrificing punch into the hole like the nine-tailed mantis shrimp, he might bury himself alive. Han Fei didn't care whether anyone would find out anything. Anyway, if someone found out, he would hide in Forge the Universe and come out in a few days. Han Fei and the nine-tailed mantis shrimp dug the hole with all their strength. It took them more than 3 days to dig. During this period, it collapsed several times. Han Fei was used to it. It must be because the black ore was brittle, so it collapsed easily. Han Fei was digging upward. He thought that he'd better get out first. Otherwise, how long would it take for him to dig in this mountain range? On this day, Han Fei didn't know where he was digging. Suddenly, he dug a hole. Yes, a hole that seemed to have been dug by someone else was connected to the hole he dug. Han Fei. The hexagon starfish. The hexagon starfish asked, "Is someone else also digging a hole?" Han Fei looked at this hole in a daze. Who would be so free to dig a hole in a sea demon's nest? The hexagon starfish exclaimed, "You, Han Fei." Han Fei scratched his head and pondered for a long time. The other party had already dug a hole. How convenient. He didn't even need to fight with a nine-tailed mantis shrimp. Han Fei perceived that the hole seemed to be more than 40 kilometers away from the inside. Most importantly, it was a miracle that the hole hadn't collapsed. Before Han Fei decided whether to go in or not, Little White had already swam into the hole. Han Fei. The hexagon starfish asked, "Was this hole dug by Xia Xiaochan?" Han Fei was also very surprised. "I don't think so. How could Xia Xiaochan dig a hole?" However, Little White had already gone, so Han Fei certainly had to follow. Putting away the nine-tailed mantis shrimp, Han Fei chased Little White all the way. After running for more than 30 kilometers, the hexagon starfish suddenly said, "There is demonic qi." Han Fei sensed it. The demonic qi was a very strange pale red energy. When Han Fei found that there were not only spiritual energy spots, but also this pale red light spots in his eyes, he knew that this place must be weird. This passage was longer than Han Fei imagined, more than 100 kilometers long. As Han Fei moved forward, there seemed to be more and more demonic qi. Han Fei closed the acupoints all over his body to prevent the demonic qi from entering his body. Unfortunately, no matter whether he could resist it or not, some demonic qi would still enter his body. Therefore, Han Fei found that the seed in his dantian began to spin slightly, as if it was absorbing the demonic qi that entered his body. Han Fei was hesitant. Should I absorb it all? He knew that absorbing this demonic qi might improve his strength. However, he didn't know if there would be any side effects. After all, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp and Little Fatty had problems before. Besides, demonic qi should be used by sea demons for cultivation. He was neither a sea demon nor a sea demon's cultivation technique. God knew what would happen if he absorbed too much. When Han Fei rushed all the way to the end of the passage, his eyes widened. This was an empty mountain, and the walls of the mountain were all scarlet crystals. Demonic chi was escaping from the crystals all the time. But Han Fei didn't have time to be shocked by the environment here. The moment he rushed into the mountain, the violent demonic chi wrapped around Han Fei and tried to break into his body. Damn it! Come on, little white, come back. Suddenly, Han Fei saw that little white rush directly to the center of the cave, into the dark red demonic chi. Han Fei found that in the center of the mountain, a big stone was entrenched there. Wait, metamorphosis water? It was a real stone, but Han Fei could feel that the infinity water in his body was trembling slightly. What else could cause the infinity water to tremble? Furthermore, little white had already swum to the front of the stone and kissed it. Han Fei immediately said angrily, "Xia Xiaochan, I know you are in the stone. What are you doing? Why are you here?" The stone didn't respond. Han Fei gritted his teeth. "If you don't answer, I'll go in." With that said, Han Fei stepped into the cave from the entrance. Immediately afterward, he heard the stone shout from the center of the mountain, "Get out. How did you find this place? You can't stay here." Han Fei frowned and scolded. "How did I come here? I'm looking for you. In order to find you, I dug for so many days that the mountain collapsed." A hole suddenly appeared on the stone, and Xia Xiaochan stuck her head out. "Get out! Get out! The demonic chi here is so wild that even sea demons can't come in. If you absorb the escaping demonic chi, you will die." Han Fei sneered. "Then come out if you can. If you come out, I won't go in." Han Fei had already felt that a large amount of demonic chi was forcibly pouring into his body, and the seed in his dantian had begun to spin quickly. Han Fei's body shook, and he took 2 steps forward. "Are you coming out or not? If you don't, I'll go in immediately." Xia Xiaochan shouted. "Are you crazy? Get out." A touch of redness flashed in Han Fei's eyes, and in the next second, he simply floated to the belly of the mountain. At that moment, the seed spun crazily, and there seemed to be a huge funnel in Han Fei's body that began to swallow demonic chi. Swish! Xia Xiaochan finally came out. She hugged Han Fei and ran straight to the entrance of the cave, while saying to the hexagon starfish, "What are you looking at?" Set up an array to block the entrance of the cave. However, Han Fei was a little stunned. Why was Xia Xiaochan's body so slippery? He lowered his head, only to see glittering scales, some blue, some purple. What stunned him the most was that a soft and glittering tail appeared in front of his eyes. Chapter 726. Inside the hexagon starfish's door, Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan were staring at each other. After staring at each other for a long time, Xia Xiaochan pouted her lower lip, threw herself into Han Fei's arms, and burst into tears. Holding Xia Xiaochan in his arms, Han Fei clapped his hands. Don't cry, don't cry. Well, I don't think it's a big problem. It's just a fishtail. Don't panic, don't panic." In fact, Han Fei was quite panicked. Not until this moment did Han Fei know why Xia Xiaochan ran away and why Xia Xiaochan refused to meet him. Although Han Fei had guessed this before, it was just a guess after all. After he killed Mo Qianshang, he began to suspect that Xia Xiaochan had 2 spiritual beasts, and he guessed that Xia Xiaochan was not a human being through the giant arowana. However, when this became a fact, Han Fei was still panicked. No one could have imagined that Xia Xiaochan would turn into a mermaid just like that. Besides, no information had appeared in his eyes yet. That was to say, the demon purification pot couldn't read Xia Xiaochan's information. "Wow! Woo!" Xia Xiaochan cried so hard that her tears fell down. Han Fei comforted her. "Don't be afraid. First of all, you're definitely not the half-mermaids we see now. Look at them. They have steel teeth, protruding cheekbones, and gills. They haven't fully evolved yet. You look like the kind that is fully evolved." However, Han Fei didn't say anything. Hearing that, Xia Xiaochan cried even louder. The hexagon starfish wisely chose to shut up. It didn't expect that Xia Xiaochan was a sea demon. It had always thought that Xia Xiaochan was a human being. The starfish was a bit confused and wondered, Can a sea demon evolve into this? If so, can starfish evolve into humans? If a starfish could evolve into a human, would a starfish evolve into a man or a woman? What's the difference between a man and a woman? The series of questions made the hexagon starfish dizzy, and its head was in a mess. Forget it. Human beings are too complicated. I'd better be a quiet starfish. In the room, Xia Xiaochan cried for a long time and said while sobbing, "It's all that Yang Ying's fault. She injected demonic energy into me, but she couldn't hold it in anymore. Then she acted up. When I woke up, I found that my body was changing, and then I became a fish." Wah! Han Fei patted Xia Xiaochan's back and comforted her. "Don't be scared. This Yang Ying is truly despicable. When I get back, the first thing I'll do is kill her." Xia Xiaochan nodded while crying. "Yes, the first thing is to kill her. This woman is too hateful." Han Fei nodded. Yes, she's not a human at all." Xia Xiaochan nodded while crying. Yes. She must be a fish too." Han Fei. Xia Xiaochan was still crying. Han Fei, however, was attracted by her tail. Every single scale was like a gemstone that flickered with a strange radiance. Some of the scales were turquoise and shone brighter than emeralds. Some of the scales were purple, giving off an inexplicable sense of nobility. Some of the scales were bluish-purple, which seemed to be a transitional color that perfectly connected the transition from purple to blue. Some of the scales were lavender or vermicelli, which looked very soft. Xia Xiaochan's tail was very long, not the kind that had a straight fork. Instead, it looked like a long tail made of ribbons. The exquisite curve seemed even more perfect than the curve of a human body. Han Fei couldn't help but be dazzled by it. Han Fei subconsciously touched Xia Xiaochan's scales. Then, Han Fei suddenly felt that Xia Xiaochan's body, which was hugging him, stiffened. Xia Xiaochan hurried to push Han Fei away. Blushing, she said shyly in a low voice, "Why are you touching my—" But Han Fei swallowed. Well, I'm a little confused right now." Han Fei looked at Xia Xiaochan carefully, only to find that her face hadn't changed at all. She still looked like the beautiful Xia Xiaochan. Her hands didn't change, either. There were no webs on them at all. Xia Xiaochan's arm joints and hair, on the other hand, were slightly different. At first, Han Fei thought that they were clothes, which were as soft as fine sand. However, when he took a closer look, he found that they weren't clothes at all, but fins that looked like gauze growing out of her body. But Han Fei would never admit that they were fins. How could fins be so beautiful? Xia Xiaochan's hair was a little purple. If he didn't look carefully, he wouldn't be able to tell. Seeing that Han Fei was looking at her, Xia Xiaochan couldn't help but burst into tears again. Seeing this, Han Fei said in a hurry, "Don't cry. Don't cry. It doesn't matter if you turn into a fish. The key is, can you still change back?" At this point, Xia Xiaochan was about to cry again. "It seems that I can't change it back." Han Fei took a breath. "So, you've been running like a crab all the way?" Xia Xiaochan nodded. "Sometimes a crab, sometimes a lobster, and sometimes a fish." Han Fei was lost for words. The metamorphosis water was truly amazing. It could change anything. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Can't we still use the metamorphosis water to transform into human beings?" "Pa!" Xia Xiaochan patted her tail. "My tail is too long. To become a human, one had to become very, very tall. Moreover, even though the Myriad Creations water could transform into anything, the Myriad Creations water couldn't transform into anything. However, when it comes to battle, unless I'm in my original state, I won't be able to unleash my full strength." Han Fei thought for a moment. "Okay, don't panic. Since we're out, we're not in a hurry to go back. But why are you running to the nest of the sirens? Just now, how did you run into the belly of the mountain full of demon chi?" Xia Xiaochan sighed. "I followed the demonic chi here. I realized that ever since I'd inhaled the monstrous aura, I needed more and more. Then I deliberately killed some half-mermaids and extracted their demonic chi. But that's not enough. Then I sensed it here. Then why did you throw all the spirit-awakening fluid to Master Hexagon Starfish?" Xia Xiaochan was stunned. "No, All my spirit awakening fluid is for you. The hexagon starfish suddenly said, you said that you wouldn't ask me for it. You said that the starfish drank it, and you said that you just needed to find Xia Xiaochan. Now I found her. Xia Xiaochan was taken aback and then said angrily, Big starfish, did you drink all the spirit awakening fluid? The hexagon starfish quickly explained, I didn't do it on purpose. The starfish couldn't help it. Besides, I left some for Han Fei. Han Fei was speechless. UF** King left some? I was the one who insisted on getting it back. Han Fei waved his hand. Forget it, forget it. I'll just grab some more. But why didn't you drink the spirit awakening fluid yourself? Xia Xiaochan frowned. I drank it. I drank a little and found that the spirit awakening fluid only slightly strengthened me. It's not enough. Besides, the spiritual energy in my body is changing, and what I need is a lot of demonic qi, not spirit awakening fluid. So, the spirit awakening fluid is not very useful to me. Han Fei seemed to have an epiphany. So, in fact, every time you have an attack, it's because of demonic qi? Xia Xiaochan nodded helplessly. Yes, it's because I need demonic qi. I knew it after I inhaled the demonic qi. Han Fei's eyes lit up. So you're cured now? Xia Xiaochan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But I've become a fish now. I want to be a human, not a fish. Woo! Han Fei waved his hand. Don't panic. I have a way. Xia Xiaochan rolled her eyes at Han Fei. What can you do? Do you still remember the fish avatar technique I got from the fiery mountain? Xia Xiaochan's eyes lit up. Isn't that a mortal level combat skill? And I can transform into a fish, not a human. Han Fei nodded. It doesn't matter. If I can transform into a fish, I can transform into a human. I've been studying this technique recently, and now I need some time to continue to deduce it. Xia Xiaochan was surprised. Can you transform from a fish into a human? Han Fei nodded solemnly. It should be possible, but it may take a little time. By the way, are you going to keep inhaling the demonic qi in this mountain? Hearing this, Xia Xiaochan wiped her tears on the spot. First of all, I had to transform all the power in my body into demonic qi. I wanted to trap you in that mountain and let you dig me out. I should have left. I didn't expect you to dig me out so soon. Han Fei sneered. Do you think the nine-tailed mantis shrimp is good at digging holes? Phew! Han Fei took a long breath and suddenly poked Xia Xiaochan's tail with his finger. Xia Xiaochan hurriedly swung her tail to the side, looking shy. What are you doing? Ha! It seems to feel good. Let me touch it. You pervert. Han Fei smiled weirdly. It's not like I haven't touched it before. Come here. Go away. If you don't come over, I'll go over, I'll kiss you. P.S. You can't see the children's shoes in this chapter. If you keep urging me, I'll get angry. Every once in a while, someone urges me. I haven't finished writing yet. The 4th chapter. That's all for today. I know many people have guessed that Xia Xiaochan is a fish, but don't panic. Is it really that simple? This is a very complicated story, far more complicated than a fish. Well, I almost fell asleep writing today into this chapter. Chapter 727. Xia Xiaochan didn't know if Han Fei was really careless. But seeing that Han Fei didn't change after she turned into a fish, she was finally relieved. In fact, she didn't care what other people thought of her. But Han Fei, Luo Xiaobai, and the others were the only people Xia Xiaochan cared about. Especially Han Fei, who was a couple with her. Their relationship had deepened by another level. After messing around for a while, Han Fei finally got what he wanted. Ignoring Xia Xiaochan, who was blushing, he simply touched her tail. Han Fei clicked his tongue in wonder. Your tail is not hard at all. It's soft as if it's wearing a layer of gauze. Then, Han Fei was bitten by Xia Xiaochan. A long time passed. Xia Xiaochan asked, How can you resist such violent demonic qi? Han Fei said with a smile, The body tempering technique that I've been practicing has amazing abilities. However, I still absorb some of it. But don't worry, I didn't absorb much, so it shouldn't be a big problem. Xia Xiaochan was confused. Is that so? Han Fei said with a weird smile. What if I'm also a fish? Xia Xiaochan rolled her eyes. Then we'll be 2 fish. We won't return to the Scattered Stars Island anymore. We'll just swim in the ocean. After chatting for a while, all the misunderstandings were cleared up, and they became close again. Han Fei was secretly relieved. According to Xia Xiaochan, the demonic qi in the belly of the mountain was so chaotic that even sea demons couldn't resist it. However, sea demons could cultivate with the demonic qi that escaped. Some talented sea demons could even cultivate to a very high level. Just like that, Xia Xiaochan gave her suspicions too. She said that there must be more than one place like the Sea Demon Mountain in the outer sea of the Scattered Stars Island. Xia Xiaochan suspected that the reason why there was such violent demonic qi here was because a very powerful sea demon died here. So, the demonic qi gathered and turned into a spring of demonic qi. Therefore, this place became one of the bases of sea demons. Now that he had found Xia Xiaochan, Han Fei didn't intend to go out for now. Xia Xiaochan needed to transform demonic qi here, and Han Fei needed to deduce the fish avatar technique here. At this point, Xia Xiaochan had run back into the spring of demonic beasts. Han Fei, however, didn't immediately deduce the fish evolution technique. He decided to fuse the fish transformation technique and the demonization scripture first. Fuse. Demonic transformation art. Demon level, high quality. Introduction. A semi-finished transformation type, cultivation method. It can successfully transform a human into a demon. The survival rate is as high as 90%. It was the beginning of the era of demonic cultivation and a method to refine demonic qi. Deduction cost. 0/50, 000 deduction result. Unknown note. The initial method has its drawbacks. Learn it cautiously. Go to hell, son of a turtle. Han Fei suddenly cursed, which gave the hexagon starfish a fright. The hexagon starfish didn't dare to speak either. It sneaked down from Han Fei's shoulder and clung to the rock wall, fearing that Han Fei would slap it. Han Fei was lost for words. Although there was an extra vine in the demon purification pot, and the fish avatar technique could be deduced again, he remembered that the deduction of the fish avatar technique required 30 million points of spiritual energy. Now, although the fusion only cost 3 million, the deduction cost had increased to 50 million. This was too much. He had just saved more than 82 million points of spiritual energy. Now, it would cost 50 million points to deduce a demon-level high-quality technique. How could he live like this? Han Fei couldn't help but regret. At the beginning, he felt that he had enough spiritual energy and didn't consider the possibility that his spiritual energy would run out. But now, with a huge sum of 82 million points of spiritual energy, he still seemed so poor. Furious, Han Fei stuffed 7 or 8 spiritual fruits into his mouth in a row, and the hexagon starfish almost drooled at the sight. The hexagon starfish thought, "How I envy Han Fei. You have to eat 7 or 8 spiritual fruits just to be angry." Starfish wants to eat them too. Hundreds of thousands of points of spiritual energy didn't make much difference to Han Fei now. Naturally, the deduction of the void fishing art had to be postponed. What he was afraid of was that the demon transformation art still couldn't be upgraded after this deduction. At that time, if it cost him 100 million points of spiritual energy, how many spiritual fruits would he have to eat to deduce it for him? However, at this point, how could Han Fei not postpone it? However, before the deduction, Han Fei still needed to study the demon transformation art carefully. When he was at the mortal level, he had to study this art for a long time every time he deduced it, and this time was no exception. Only by understanding more of the history, experiences, and cultivation methods of humans and sea demons could he better understand the effects of cultivating the demonic transformation art. As Han Fei browsed through it, he learned that the demon transformation art was actually not created by humans. In other words, the demon transformation art was actually created by those who had successfully practiced the fish transformation art. After the great purge of human beings, there were indeed very few people who practiced the fish transformation art. However, the first batch of people who practiced the fish avatar technique survived in the ocean. Among them, some people became stronger and stronger and finally created the demon transformation art. It was also this person who started the era of demonic cultivators and was known as the Sea King. Han Fei couldn't help but think of the Sea King's secret technique he got. Was that technique also created by the Sea King? If he thought about it carefully, wasn't the Sea King and the fishing god antagonistic? One started the era of demonic cultivators and was the pioneer of the current sea demons. The other was holding a fishing rod in his hand. Could it be that this person created the great era of national fishing? Of course, this was still quite far away from Han Fei. According to the demon transformation art, since the era of demonic cultivators began, the war between human beings and sea demons had begun. It started countless years ago and hadn't ended yet. What Han Fei wasn't sure about was which period of the war the Age of Doom he heard from the Snow God's Temple was referring to. After all, the reason why the Snow God's Temple was abandoned was that not only the land sank in the Age of Doom, but also the sea demons invaded. As for the demon transformation art, there was no record of how to deduce this art, nor any examples. Almost all the records were about the battles. Therefore, Han Fei skimmed through it and skipped it. There seemed to be some very powerful big shots in it. But what did that have to do with him? In addition to these historical records, there was also the cultivation method of the demon transformation art. It was about how to develop one's demonic heritage from an ordinary sea demon. Wait, develop demonic heritage? Demonic heritage can be developed? Isn't it what one is born to be? Han Fei suddenly realized that he seemed to have discovered a big secret. Wow, the demonic heritage of sea demons is not inborn, but can be developed? If that was the case, it would be terrifying. This alone could probably attract countless people to join the ranks of sea demons. After all, it was a demonic heritage that could grow. How could an ordinary person withstand it? It must be noted that in this world, most people were fishers, ordinary people. Only a very small number of people were able to cultivate to a higher level. Why? Because the level of the spiritual heritage was too low. Han Fei hurriedly read on, only to find that it was about the use of demonic energy. The first sentence of the book, demonic energy, was a kind of heaven and earth energy of a higher level than spiritual energy. The explanation given was, spiritual energy was pure heaven and earth energy. Demonic energy was a new kind of energy born after the abnormal gathering of heaven and earth energy. It may come from the death of a strong master, or from the changes caused by the gathering of mysterious terrain. This kind of energy was more violent and could break the shackles of pure spiritual energy cultivation and develop a new cultivation system. After reading it all, Han Fei felt that he was almost brainwashed by this weird theory. Could it be that the strong had already begun to analyze the nature of the world? However, there were obviously many things in this demon transformation art that couldn't be explained. For example, how did ordinary creatures become sea demons? For example, did demonic cultivators have to find places where demonic energy gathered? What if they couldn't find it? Did they stop cultivating? For example, were there any sequelae of this cultivation? Could they transform? Could they change their cultivation methods? Han Fei glanced at Xia Xiaochan, who was still transforming demonic energy, and gritted his teeth. Continue to deduce. At that moment, all the spiritual stones in Forge the Universe were turned into powder. The spiritual spring was rapidly evaporating, and the stored spiritual energy suddenly dropped by a few million. 50 million points of spiritual energy were directly swallowed by the demon purification pot. This guy didn't hold back at all. Soon after, a new chapter began to unfold amidst the fog. True Spirit, Demonic Scripture, Heaven Level, Low Quality, Introduction, an incarnation cultivation method that can turn living creatures into demons. Legend has it that the first Sea King turned into a law of nature, wrote the demon's secret record, and sent it between heaven and earth to unlock the inheritance of demonic cultivation for all creatures. It contains the cultivation method of sea demons. Deduction cost, 0/100 million deduction result. Unknown note. The Book of Enlightenment can enlighten all creatures, but it is extremely difficult to become a great demon. When he saw this introduction, Han Fei gasped. Damn it, Why does it sound even more mysterious than the void fishing art? The true spirit fishing art was only created by the 9 king-level masters. After it was created, heaven and earth cried together, and it rained. The creator of the true spirit demonic scripture had turned into a law of nature, and he opened the inheritance of demonic cultivation for all creatures. Han Fei swallowed. He was thinking about a question: what would human beings or sea demons become when they cultivated to the extreme? First update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 728. Han Fei felt that this world was more terrifying than he had imagined. How strong could a strong master be? How big could this ocean be? What was the Age of Doom like? Where was the Immortal Palace? Compared to these, the so-called unknown place, the Scattered Stars Island, what the hell were they? However, Han Fei didn't have time to think about these now. Obviously, the deduction this time didn't achieve the desired effect. Although the true spirit demonic scripture looked very advanced, it was obviously only a demonic cultivation method and didn't have a way to transform a sea demon into a human being. Besides, the next deduction was even more outrageous. It directly required 100 million spiritual energy. This thing was even more expensive than the indestructible body and void fishing. After all, it was only a heaven-level, low-quality one. It was already so expensive for a low-quality one. What if it was a high-quality or divine-quality one? Han Fei even suspected that even if he deduced it again, he might not be able to deduce the sea demon cultivation method to transform into a human being. If that was the case, how much spiritual energy would he need? Han Fei couldn't help but feel a little helpless. Is my current consumption of spiritual energy already so high? Other people use tens of thousands or even thousands of spiritual energy, but he had already begun to use hundreds of millions of spiritual energy. Even if he could eat 20 spiritual energy a day, it would take him 2 months to get 100 million points of spiritual energy. Forget it. I'll buy the spiritual fruit in the future. Anyway, I can buy anything with money. So Han Fei made up his mind. I'm going to do it today. When Yang Ryun was only level 40, she could already transform from a fish into a human being. Can't you transform into a human being with this awesome demonic cultivation method? Under normal circumstances, Han Fei wouldn't have continued to deduce at this point, because it would be meaningless to deduce it again. This true spirit demonic scripture was an enlightening demonic scripture, which was actually the most suitable for learning. Once he deduced it to a higher level and couldn't learn it, what he deduced would be meaningless and could only be kept in his mind as a memory. After all, whether it was a human cultivation method or a sea demon's cultivation method, they all needed to be learned step by step. Han Fei also copied a jade slip and asked Xia Xiaochan about it later. She had just become a sea demon, so she certainly didn't have any demonic cultivation method yet. At that time, he would first give her one to cultivate so that she could perfectly transition to a higher level of demonic cultivation, which should be even better. Continue the deduction. With a thought from Han Fei, more than 1,500 spiritual fruits in Forge the Universe were shattered. The magnificent spiritual energy instantly filled Forge the Universe, and then disappeared without a trace, as if it were swept away by a huge vortex. Han Fei's heart was bleeding. If they were eaten slowly, their comprehensive strength could be improved. The hexagon starfish clung to the rock wall and saw all of Han Fei's expressions. After all, it had 6 eyes and 6 brains. It had almost no blind spots in every direction. It was curious. What's with Han Fei's expression? Why did he feel as if he had been robbed of 10,000 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid? A moment later, a new cultivation technique appeared. Demonic Vein Divine Technique, Heaven Tier, High Grade, Introduction, an incarnation-type cultivation method, a demon cultivator's meridian opening method. The demonic vein derivation art broke through the barrier of the demonic vein and obtained a demonic vein that could grow without any obstacles. When this art was cultivated to the extreme, one would definitely become a greater demonic beast. Deduction cost, 0/500 million deduction result. Unknown remarks, an excellent demonic cultivation technique. If you cultivate this technique, you will definitely become a sea spirit great demon. If you want to seek enlightenment, you need to have an epiphany. Puff. Han Fei felt that his eyes were dazzled. He didn't notice anything else, but he was stunned by the 500 million that would be spent on the deduction. Looking at the introduction of the technique again, Han Fei felt that he was about to spit out a mouthful of blood. F***CK, your meridian opening method. I spent 100 million, and this is all you're showing me? Han Fei felt so heartbroken that he couldn't breathe. His face was so hideous that the hexagon starfish slowly climbed to the rock wall behind the cave. For some reason, the hexagon starfish felt that Han Fei was very dangerous at this moment, as if he was suffering some kind of unbearable pain. He even suspected that Han Fei was going to kill him. He didn't know who he was going to kill. In this damn place, it could only be Xia Xiaochan. Kill Xia Xiaochan? That's impossible. Then, the more he thought about it, the more the hexagon starfish felt that something was wrong. He'd better stay away from Han Fei. Han Fei trembled all over. Should he spend the 500 million? If he did, the meridian opening method had already been invented. She was already a sea spirit. Seek enlightenment? What kind of enlightenment? In any case, no matter what Tao he sought, this demonic vein divine technique had an extremely high evaluation. In the demon race, it would not be an exaggeration to say that it was a rare cultivation technique. But why don't you turn into a human being for me? Han Fei's eyelids were cramping. Looking at Xia Xiaochan, who was sitting cross-legged above the spring of demonic beasts with her eyes closed, he tried to hold back the excitement in his heart. Steady, steady. Once I can turn into a human being, I'll be able to practice it myself. It'll be an incredible technique. But Han Fei still felt sorry when he thought about it. He thought of Yang Ruoyan again. That damn Yang Ruoyan. Why can you turn into a human being so soon after you become a demon? Han Fei was full of confusion. Was what he saw an illusion? However, he had already bragged about it. Even if he didn't, he couldn't just watch Xia Xiaochan turn into a sea demon and not be able to change back. Making another copy of the demon heritage divine technique, Han Fei chose to continue deducing it. Continue deducing. Han Fei was going all out for the 500 million points of spiritual energy. A way out? No way out. He firmly believed that sea demons must have a technique to turn into human beings. Yang Ruiyun, Mo Qinshang, Su Mo. They were all human beings. Han Fei believed that they were all unparalleled heavenly talents among the sea demons, and that they practiced the most powerful techniques of the demon race. But since they could turn into human beings, he could certainly deduce it. Bam! In Forge the Universe, nearly 8,000 spiritual fruits and spiritual stones were shattered. The intense spiritual energy almost gathered into a river and was all swept away by the big vortex, transformed by the demon purification pot. However, when Han Fei deduced again, above the sea and the sky, bloody clouds were gathering, waves were surging, and thunder was rumbling within hundreds of thousands of kilometers. At that moment, on the Scattered Stars Island, a figure soared to the sky. Shueishenqi looked extremely solemn. Behind him, a group of experts with a ridiculous number of star ranks wore astonished looks on their faces. Someone said, "What happened on the sea? Why did the world suddenly change so drastically?" Someone sighed. "Is there any treasure?" Shueishenqi ordered, "Pass down my order. Everyone on the Scattered Stars Island is forbidden to go out. All those who are outside are recalled. The Scattered Stars Island is in the first level of combat readiness. I'll go and have a look." Immediately, someone said, "General, don't take the risk alone. I'll go." A 10-star powerhouse stopped Shueishenqi. "You stay on the Scattered Stars Island. We can handle this kind of thing alone." On the entire Scattered Stars Island, everyone stopped what they were doing, raised their heads, and looked up at the sky. Looking at the blood-red sky, they were all shocked. Outside the Scattered Stars Island, many half-mermaids stood on the sea and watched this scene solemnly. Someone said, "Is there a heavenly talent among humans? How can it cause such a phenomenon?" A sea demon ordered, "Pass down my order. Order all the low-level sea demons to set up a net of 300,000 kilometers. But if there are any abnormalities, report immediately. However, while everybody was debating, and when someone from the Scattered Stars Island was about to go to sea, the bloody clouds in the sky gradually faded. The rumbling thunder just now was gone too. Slowly, the sky was restored. Many people were dumbfounded. Why did the abnormal phenomenon disappear so quickly? How could they find the source of the phenomenon if they didn't stay for a while longer? However, Han Fei, who was below the Sea Demon Mountain, had no idea what was happening outside. He was widening his eyes and looking forward to it. It has to happen. It has to happen. When the mist was gone, a new technique appeared, and information popped up in Han Fei's eyes. Demon God Scripture, Heaven Level, Divine Quality, Introduction. This is a technique that's close to Tao. The Demon God Scripture is divine. If Tao can't be Tao, all creatures will surrender. Deduction cost, 0/1, 000, 000 deduction result. Unknown note. This is the current deduction limit of the Demon Purification Pot. Another deduction will involve the mysteries of nature and will damage the Demon Purification Pot. Pooh! Han Fei vomited a mouthful of blood. He really vomited this time, and blood was flowing out his nostrils too. However, it wasn't because Han Fei was wounded, but because he was infuriated. Han Fei slapped the rock wall with his backhand. Immediately, the rock wall collapsed to the ground, and the hexagon starfish fell directly from the rock wall. Then, he swooshed into the channel. The hexagon starfish rolled his eyes in fear. Han Fei was too horrifying. The man was so ferocious that the starfish couldn't be more panicked. Xia Xiaochan was alarmed too. Seeing that Han Fei vomited blood, she changed her expression and charged at him. Han Fei, what's wrong? Why are you vomiting blood? Are you hurt? Xia Xiaochan was so anxious that she didn't know what to do. Han Fei wiped his mouth. I'm fine. Han Fei was infuriated. Son of AB *TCH, what kind of technique is this? It's almost a Tao. What's wrong with you turning into a human? Also, the deduction cost was 1 billion. F***CK, you're 1 billion. Even if you sell me, I can't get 1 billion aura now. Also, the Demon Purification Pot is on strike. It's only a heaven-level, divine quality technique. How can it deduce the limit? Aren't you very capable? You can even deduce a venerable level technique. How can you not deduce a heaven-level, divine quality technique? Han Fei felt extremely desperate. This time, he really had no money to deduce it. He had used up all his money, and the remaining spiritual energy for various sources was only about 10 million. Compared with 1 billion, Han Fei only felt deep despair. Xia Xiaochan was so anxious that she burst into tears. What's wrong with you? Did you try the fish avatar technique? Are you stupid? You are a human being. You are not a demon. A trace of determination flashed in Han Fei's eyes, and he wiped his nosebleed. Don't panic. It's not a big problem. Let's just not go back. Second, asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 729. Xia Xiaochan obviously didn't believe that Han Fei was fine. At this moment, she grabbed Han Fei and asked, "Tell me first, what did you do just now? Why did you vomit blood?" Han Fei gave the True Spirit demonic scripture to Xia Xiaochan and said, "Actually, the fish avatar technique I got is a sealed demon cultivation technique. Just now I tried to break the seal by force and got this thing out." Xia Xiaochan took the True Spirit demonic scripture and read it, only to be dumbfounded. Smack! Xia Xiaochan slapped Han Fei's arm and said angrily, "You broke the seal just for this?" Han Fei grinned. "It takes a lot of spiritual energy to open the seal. I'm poor now." Xia Xiaochan hesitated. "Since this fish avatar technique is a sea demon's cultivation technique, you'd better not break the seal. I guess it's hard to turn a fish into a human being." Han Fei shook his head. "There must be a way. You don't know, but I accepted a mission to explore a treasure trove a few days ago. One of my teammates is a sea demon who looks exactly like a human being. Even an 8-star expert can't tell him apart." Xia Xiaochan was immediately refreshed. "Really?" Han Fei nodded solemnly. "Yes. His name is Su Mo. He colluded with the sea demons. Since he can turn into a human being, the sea demon expert must have a technique to transform into a human being. We're right below the sea demon's nest. This is a once-in-a-blue-moon opportunity. We could try it out secretly. Xia Xiaochan opened her mouth. But there must be a lot of sea demon experts here. We can't beat them. Han Fei grinned. Didn't you say that the demonic qi here is too violent? If we can't handle it, we can dig a hole above the spring of demonic qi. I don't think they dare to break in. Xia Xiaochan shook her head. Maybe. Regular sea demons may not be able to withstand the violent demonic qi, but what about the particularly powerful ones? I'm not sure. Besides, you're a human being. You can't resist the violent demonic qi, which will conflict with the spiritual energy in your body and kill you. Han Fei looked back at the hexagon starfish. I can hide in the gate of the hexagon starfish. It's not afraid of demonic qi. The hexagon starfish quickly responded. Starfish are scared too. Starfish can only absorb the demonic qi slowly, not crazily. Han Fei said angrily, Shut up. If I say you can do it, you can do it. Hexagon starfish. Han Fei glanced at Xia Xiaochan. What about you? Why aren't you afraid of this demonic aura at all? Xia Xiaochan was a little confused. I don't know. I just feel that there's not much difference between this demonic energy and spiritual energy. This sentence hurt Han Fei's heart. The half-mermaids who heard this would probably feel even more heartbroken. Demons are really infuriating. Han Fei's eyes were firm. Then let's leave it for now. Let's think of a way to knock out 2 sea demons and ask them. By the way, where are we now? Xia Xiaochan thought for a moment. It seems to be in an undersea mountain range. I can also turn invisible, and I have demonic aura and metamorphosis water. Therefore, it was easier when I came in. I once saw that many sea demons would gather towards a mountain in the center. That should be the main peak of the sea demons. Han Fei pondered for a moment. Let's dig over first. If we can't, I'll find a chance to tie 2 half-mermaids back with the spear of forbidden net. It was reasonable to be afraid of moving under the enemy's feet. However, Han Fei didn't feel this way. At the very most, when he was escaping, he could just destroy the entire tunnel. With the hexagon starfish's array and Xia Xiaochan's metamorphosis water, he could hide in a stone made of infinity water and wouldn't be discovered so easily. 7 days later, Han Fei dug for more than 300 kilometers before he reached the inside of a mountain. On the way, Han Fei saw no less than 100 spiritual stones and even an ultra-quality spiritual stone. However, Han Fei didn't dare to take it this time. He was mainly afraid that the channel would collapse and he wouldn't have a chance to run out. It seemed that these spiritual stones were vital to maintaining the stability of a mountain. Suddenly, Han Fei asked in surprise, Do you feel that the spiritual energy here is stronger? Xia Xiaochan nodded. I feel that the demonic qi here has weakened a lot. Han Fei smiled. Why don't they use the mountain with the demonic spring as their base? Why do they come to the mountain with rich spiritual energy? Xia Xiaochan rolled her eyes. Most sea demons also absorb spiritual energy. They can transform spiritual energy into demonic qi. That's what I'm doing now, and I've already transformed most of it. Han Fei frowned. Is the transformation so slow? Xia Xiaochan flicked her tail. Not really. The transformation of spiritual energy into demonic qi is one thing, and the demonic qi is also changing my body. It seems to be building a new set of meridians, so it's very slow. Han Fei couldn't help but be shocked. This was a bit similar to the Demon Heritage Divine technique, but the Demon Heritage Divine technique seemed to be more advanced. It was said to be able to break the barrier of the demonic heritage, so it didn't seem to need the demonic heritage. Han Fei was thinking. He had to find a suitable excuse to give the Demon Heritage Divine technique to Xia Xiaochan, which should be much better than the True Spirit demonic scripture. Clang! While digging, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp suddenly took out a spiritual stone. Han Fei's eyes slightly lit up. A high-quality spiritual stone? Forget it. Just throw it on the ground. After we catch the half-mermaids and interrogate them, we'll collect the spiritual stones along the way. Xia Xiaochan exclaimed, Huh? There seems to be a lot of spiritual energy in this mountain. Han Fei said with a smile, That's for sure. Their base is here, and it's convenient to bury spiritual stones in this mountain for cultivation. However, a moment later, Han Fei was shocked. There were indeed a lot of spiritual stones. He had already dug out hundreds of low-grade and mid-grade spirit stones and more than 30 high-grade spirit stones. Looking at these spiritual stones, Han Fei's eyelids twitched. He really wanted to put them all away. On the other side, the hexagon starfish was trying to hide a high-quality spiritual stone, only to be slapped away by Han Fei. Don't you dare try to hide it. Pick it up when we run away. Do you want to trap us here until the mountain collapses? The hexagon starfish looked at the spiritual stones on the ground and said regretfully, "Can I go back and wait for you?" Han Fei sneered. "What do you think?" Suddenly, Xia Xiaochan said, "Wait, there's demonic qi." As she talked, Xia Xiaochan's eyes seemed to have turned silver. She raised her head and looked up. It wasn't until a long time later that Xia Xiaochan finally recovered. She looked at Han Fei and said, "A lot of sea demons seem to be gathered up there." Above the sea demon mountain, many half-mermaids were gathering. A half-mermaid leader roared. "The earth veins have been shaking recently. However, it might be a good thing. The earth veins seem to be gathering. We don't know when the earth veins will shake again. So, take advantage of this opportunity to cultivate here and strive to have a breakthrough." A half-mermaid said, "My lord, the earth veins are gathering abnormally. Is it possible that someone is stealing our earth veins?" The leader looked at the half-mermaid as if he were an idiot. "Are you an idiot? If someone were to steal the earth veins, they would have run out of spiritual energy. How could you possibly have a chance to cultivate?" Inside the mountain, Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan watched helplessly. The spiritual stones that they had set up all the way for quick recycling were spreading out spiritual energy. Also, the dispersing spiritual energy was being guided upward. It seemed that the spiritual energy had been absorbed by someone. Han Fei's eyes bulged. "Isn't this too outrageous? We dug up the spiritual stones through hard work. They're simply enjoying the fruits of our labor." Xia Xiaochan was lost for words too. They must have come up to cultivate. Then what do we do? How can we catch them? Han Fei said gloomily, "Cultivate? The spiritual energy I dug up is for them to cultivate?" Han Fei couldn't help but say, "There must be a lot of demonic stones in the spring of demonic spirits, right? Let's dig up some demonic stones. What do you think if we exchange them for the demonic stones?" Xia Xiaochan grinned. "Okay, if they absorb a lot of demonic qi recklessly, it will be hard for them to transform their cultivation. It might even cause internal conflicts. Then, we'll capture one or two of them." At this moment, the hexagon starfish asked, "Can we take the spiritual stones away now?" Han Fei pondered for a moment. "Not yet. Let them absorb it for a while. We'll go back and dig for demonic stones." Xia Xiaochan said, "I'll go back and dig for demonic stones. You can cultivate with them here. By then, I can replace the spiritual stones with demonic stones. Logically speaking, the channel won't collapse." Han Fei realized that it did make sense. He nodded and said, "Then you go and come back quickly. I'll absorb the spiritual energy again." Xia Xiaochan went back to dig for demonic stones. Han Fei set up quite a few spirit gathering arrays, only to see that the spiritual energy nearby was surging crazily. Han Fei sneered, "Do you think the spiritual stones that I dug up are for your cultivation? Give them back to me." Above the mountain, a half-mermaid was surprised. "Why can't we absorb the spiritual energy?" A half-mermaid exclaimed, "Hiss! Spiritual energy is gathering in the veins. Has the sea demon mountain been connected to the underground veins?" The half-mermaid leader sensed it again and said in relief, "I chose this place as the main peak because I considered that it might be a place where spiritual veins converge. It seems that it's finally converging, even though it's a few years late." Someone immediately flattered, "You're wise, my lord. However, my lord, the spiritual energy doesn't seem easy to absorb." The half-mermaid leader sneered, "Of course, this is because of the sudden change of the veins. The gathering of spiritual energy isn't stable yet. Of course, it's not easy for you to absorb it. Just wait a moment. It should be done soon. Below the mountain, sitting in the spirit-gathering array, Han Fei cursed. You want to compete with me for resources? Come on, let's absorb each other. Third, asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 730. The hexagon starfish was dumbfounded. Wasn't Han Fei absorbing spiritual energy too fast? Also, why could he keep absorbing spiritual energy? Shouldn't his body be full after a while? Little did they know that Han Fei was in a great mood at this moment. Such pure spiritual energy and such a huge amount of absorption finally made him feel a little better. Although the spiritual energy contained in the spiritual stones wasn't enormous, there were still tens of millions of them, not to mention that he had only dug one tunnel. If he could live in a mountain long enough and dig hundreds of tunnels, he might be able to get hundreds of millions of points of spiritual energy. After all, this was the base of sea demons anyway. How could it be called a base without hundreds of millions of points of spiritual energy? About 2 hours later, Xia Xiaochan came. She sprinted and scattered demonic stones on her way. Seeing that Han Fei was still absorbing spiritual energy, Xia Xiaochan couldn't help but say, "Stop absorbing and put away the spiritual stones. Let's dig out another tunnel. It's more important to catch the enemy." Han Fei opened his eyes and asked in surprise, "Huh? You're digging demonic stones so fast?" Xia Xiaochan said casually, "There are demonic stones below the demonic spring. They've been accumulating for years, and nobody is digging them. How can they not be fast?" Han Fei waved his hand and collected all the spiritual energy on the ground. Then he kicked the nine-tailed mantis shrimp. Changed to Fong Xian. Let's keep digging. Above the sea demon mountain, hundreds of half-mermaids were waiting. They were waiting for the spiritual energy to gather and erupt. Suddenly, a half-mermaid opened its eyes. Not good. The spiritual heritage has become a demonic heritage. One of the half-mermaids was still absorbing spiritual energy, only to absorb tremendous demonic energy. Instantly, the half-mermaid roared with bloodshot eyes. The demonic energy inside its body surged out, and it stabbed its partner with its harpoon. Asshole! Everybody stop training. Something is wrong with the spiritual heritage. A few companion spirits are shrimps and crabs. Dig a few holes and check. Don't dig for spiritual stones without permission, or you'll be severely punished. The sea demons finally realized that something was wrong and planned to dig a few holes to find out what was going on. However, Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan had already started a new round of digging. The sea demons were quickly digging holes too. Dumb, dumb, dumb. Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan stopped digging and pricked up their ears in confusion. Xia Xiaochan frowned. Not good. It seems that we've been discovered. Is it digging down from above? Han Fei bared his teeth. He had been digging hard enough, and the nine-tailed mantis shrimp was digging in the cave. Did the nine-tailed mantis shrimp notice it? Han Fei was stunned. Don't panic. Let's wait for them to dig it out and catch 2 of them. Then, we'll run back to the demonic spring. I don't think they know where our base camp is. Xia Xiaochan tilted her head and glanced at Han Fei. You're really bold. Then they will know that there are people under the mountain. Han Fei said casually, "It's okay. Let's dig a few fake roads for them to find. When the spiritual energy in your body is completely transformed, we'll go out first. It's more convenient to catch people in the sea than in the sea demon's nest." The hexagon starfish suggested, "I think we'd better go. What if the sea demons dig it down?" Pondering for a moment, Han Fei asked, "Can experts dig holes fast?" Xia Xiaochan. The hexagon starfish. Xia Xiaochan was much more sensitive to demonic qi than regular sea demons. Very soon, she locked onto the direction where one of the sea demons was digging. So, Han Fei took out all the spiritual stones nearby and waited for the sea demons to come down. He waited for half a day. In the concealment array and the breath concealment array, Han Fei was holding a big net, and on the other side, Xia Xiaochan had turned into a crab with the metamorphosis water. Little 6, do you think there's anything wrong with the sea demon mountain? Why do I feel that there's less spiritual energy? Did the earthquake of the earth veins leak the demonic qi barrier? In a cave, 2 half-mermaids were digging quickly. It was very difficult to dig an undersea mine, so they weren't very fast and were still chatting. Dumb, dumb. The half-mermaid, named Little Six, snorted. I don't think so. The demonic chi barrier has existed for years. It would have been leaked long ago. The other half-mermaid sighed. I'm told that human beings are powerful heavenly talents. It would be great if we could absorb the power in the demonic chi barrier. Little Six said with a smile. According to Miss Yuji, some heavenly talents in the boundless sea can absorb demonic chi and transform it. But I don't think we can do that. Well, I don't know how long we'll have to fight against human beings. Why do we have to rob human beings of spirit awakening fluid? Can't we rob other places? Little Six bared his teeth and said, there are too many big demons in the deep sea. We might not be able to defeat them. Besides, our bloodline was born here, and our mission is to fight against the humans. Why? Little Six was stunned. I don't know. I've been fighting human beings since I was awakened. However, according to Miss Yuji, human beings are all crooked. They want the spirit awakening fluid so that they can become experts and then kill us. In order not to be killed by them, we have to fight back. I'm told that Miss Yuji lives in the capital. It seems that we are millions of kilometers away from here. Little Six looked fascinated. I heard that if we become a real sea demon, we will have a chance to go to the capital. Let's work hard. I think it's going to happen soon. Okay. Boom. Just as the two half-mermaids were talking, the ground under them suddenly collapsed, and a pile of rocks fell, pressing the two of them under the rocks. However, the strength of the half-mermaids was not weak at all. As the two half-mermaids bombarded, large pieces of gravel were crushed. At this moment, Little Six suddenly said, there is a small cave below. I sense spiritual stones. Little Six, the leader, said we can't take spiritual stones. Don't listen to him. There are only the two of us here. Let's take it first. Who will know that we dug up spiritual stones? The two of them were overjoyed and hurriedly dug down. However, as soon as the passage was drilled through, suddenly, a big crab suddenly raised its pincers, and the two immediately prepared to fight back. But in the next second, the two of them suddenly changed their expressions, and a big net had covered them from behind. Han Fei caught the two half-mermaids with the spirit-forbidding net and roared, "Let's go!" As Han Fei waved his hand and collected the spiritual stones, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp quickly punched the wall of the cave. Boom! Large pieces of stones almost filled the passage in an instant, and Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan ran all the way. Above the sea demon mountain, a bunch of half-mermaids surrounded them. A half-mermaid was surprised. I remember that Little 6 and 17 dug here, didn't they? Were they buried? A half-mermaid spread out his senses. I sense that it's all stones down there. Where are Little 6 and 17? Informed the leader. Han Fei ran crazily and collected the spiritual stones on the way, and the nine-tailed mantis shrimp smashed the passage now and then. After only a moment, deafening noises were echoing non-stop. The half-mermaid leader above the mountain roared, "Ask all the diggers to come out. The earth veins are shaking." Why is the area of the collapse so small? My lord, Little 6 and 17 are gone. The half-mermaid leader frowned. Were they buried in the mountain? No, my lord. I think they're gone. The cave they dug collapsed, but I can't sense them. The half-mermaid leader was surprised. You can't sense them? A moment later, the half-mermaid leader stood in a pit and couldn't have looked more awful. Inform everyone that human beings have invaded. Lock down the entire Sea Demon Mountain and find them. They must be found. The half-mermaid leader had sensed the lingering air of human beings in the pit. He couldn't have been mistaken. At this moment, he suddenly realized that it wasn't the earth veins that were shaking, but that someone had dug into the earth veins. The half-mermaid leader roared, "Focus on the strange stone mountain and the collapsed Daqing mountain. The human villains must have dug in from those two places." While the sea demons searched for Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan, they had returned to the spring of demonic spirits with two half-mermaids. The two sea demons were horrified to see the spring of demonic spirits. A tall and slender half-mermaid looked at the spring of demonic spirits in fear. Human beings, you're dead for breaking into the spring of demonic spirits. The other half-mermaid bared its fangs and grabbed the spirit-forbidden net. You'll be corrupted by demonic chi and die a miserable death. Inside the cave, a head suddenly popped out of the giant crab. Do you two know how sea demons can turn into human beings? The two half-mermaids were stunned. What kind of monster could a head grow out of a crab? Fourth chapter, asking for votes. I just finished it, but it's a little late. I haven't moved for a day. I can't miss the chapter tomorrow. Identity revealed. Life and death crisis. End of this chapter. Chapter 731. Han Fei found a problem. He suspected that the demon purification pot wouldn't show information to highly intelligent or humanoid creatures, or would only show information in certain states. For example, Han Fei couldn't see anything from these two half-mermaids, but he could see Yang Ruyun and Mo Qinshang back then. Was it because they were both about to transform? Hiding in the crab shell transformed by the metamorphosis water, Xia Xiaochan stared at the two sea demons coldly. I'm asking you a question. Do you know how sea demons transform into human beings? The two half-mermaids shook their heads at the same time. No. Among them, the half-mermaid, named Little Six, sneered. Even if I know, I won't tell you humans. Han Fei glanced at Xia Xiaochan and said telepathically, it doesn't matter if you show up. They will die sooner or later anyway. I like to see if you can scare them with your identity. Xia Xiaochan nodded, and the crab shell dissipated with a swish. Xia Xiaochan's real body floated above the demonic spring that was surging with demonic chi. The two half-mermaids were dumbfounded by this scene. A sea demon? Is this a royal lady? The two half-mermaids looked at each other in bewilderment. They had never seen a sea demon of Xia Xiaochan's level before. She was simply too beautiful. The scales that shone with an enchanting light, and the fins that fluttered like colorful silk. Was she really a sea demon? Pa! Han Fei slapped each of the two half-mermaids and said, How dare you not kneel in front of the holy lady? Do you want to be slapped? The holy lady? The two half-mermaids were dumbfounded too. Xia Xiaochan looked much more noble than Miss Yuji. At least, Miss Yuji didn't have such an outstanding temperament or such beautiful scales. Han Fei turned their heads. The holy lady has been hiding among human beings since she was a child. A few days ago, the human race was in chaos and the sea was in turmoil. Don't you know? The holy lady broke the human race's trick on her own. However, she was also beaten back to her original form. You two idiots, kneel properly. The two half-mermaids knelt down to Xia Xiaochan in confusion. At this time, only the hexagon starfish's eyes were rolling. These two half-mermaids were probably doomed to meet Han Fei. Just like me, it's a little tragic. However, a half-mermaid looked at Han Fei and asked, Then who are you? Han Fei's face turned cold. Me? I am the protector of the Saintess. Don't look down on me just because I'm a human, but I was the one who protected the Saintess all the way here. See that? The Saintess was severely injured and had to use demonic energy to heal. Think about it. Apart from the Saintess, who else can cultivate in a place where demon aura is rampant? The two half-mermaids were dumbfounded. A human guarding the sea demons? Why does it sound like I'm listening to a heavenly book? Little Six asked. We know that this lord must be a member of the sea demon royal family, but does the royal family not have a humanoid transformation technique? Han Fei looked at him as if he were an idiot. What royal family? The Saintess was a descendant of the Sea King. In the infinite ocean, there's an undersea holy city where the Saintess comes from. Also, the Saintess has lived in the human race since she was a child, so of course, she doesn't have the secret techniques of the demon race. What's wrong with your brains? The other half-mermaid took a breath. The undersea holy city? Isn't the biggest one the royal city? Smack! Han Fei slapped him again. Under the holy city, there are 13,500 royal cities. How can a mere royal city be compared with the undersea holy city? Wow! The two half-mermaids were completely dumbfounded. 13,500 royal cities? Isn't this a little too much? Xia Xiaochan's beautiful eyes curved, and she glanced at Han Fei. This guy is really good at bragging. Nonsense comes out of his mouth. In the blink of an eye, she had become a saintess and a descendant of the Sea King. The question is, do you know who the Sea King is? The two half-mermaids were struggling. On the one hand, Han Fei was a human being, so they were vigilant. On the other hand, Xia Xiaochan was indeed a very noble figure and a big shot who could directly use demonic chi barriers. Miss Yuji had tried to use the demonic chi barrier, but she only persisted for 100 seconds before the demonic chi in her body began to go haywire, so she had to retreat. Little Six asked the last question. Since the saintess is here, why don't you go directly to our leader? Han Fei rolled his eyes and looked at the two of them contemptuously. The saintess has a heavenly bloodline. A drop of blood can awaken a creature, and 2 drops can transform a creature into a demon. But now your strength has been greatly damaged. Go to your leader? What if your leader has evil intentions? All you need to know is that if you tell me the way to transform into a human, the saintess can return to the human race. At that time, I'll give you two some gifts, and you two will enjoy endless benefits. Han Fei immediately said to Xia Xiaochan via voice transmission, show them the true spirit demonic scripture. We'll take it back later. Xia Xiaochan stood proudly in the chaotic demonic chi, pointed her finger, and a jade slip flew out. Xia Xiaochan said, since it's not easy for you to cultivate, I'll give you the creation demonic scripture. This was obtained by the Sea King as a sea spirit. In less than 3 years, you will have a chance to become a sea spirit. Wow, a sea spirit? Little Six and the other half-mermaid quickly took the jade slip and skimmed through it, only to be shocked. The first Sea King turned into a sea spirit, wrote the demonic secret record, and stored it between heaven and earth, opened the demonic cultivation heritage for all creatures. It contained the cultivation method of sea demons. Moreover, this was a genuine heaven-grade demonic technique, a technique that could not be deceived. The true spirit demonic scripture was something that the two of them had never heard of before. The two of them were not fools. This cultivation technique was simply too powerful. It was so powerful that their bodies were trembling right now. Immediately, the two of them knelt to Xia Xiaochan again and again. How could they resist? Thank you for your gift, Saintess. We swear to follow you until death. Smack! Han Fei slapped them again. Why don't you look at yourselves? Do you think you deserve to follow the Saintess? This true spirit demonic scripture is already a great favor to you. Why don't you tell us how to transform into a human being? Neither of the two sea demons liked Han Fei. Humans are still humans. They only know how to bully sea demons. We've only said a few words, and you've already slapped us a few times. If it weren't for the Saintess, if it weren't for the spirit forbidden net, we would have poked you to death, Little Six said. Thank you, Saintess, for your gift. Unfortunately, we haven't learned how to transform into a human being yet. Han Fei's eyes widened. You haven't learned it? The Saintess learned it as soon as she learned it. The Saintess just doesn't know this technique. Little Six said, but we don't have the technique. Han Fei didn't feel good. However, he didn't expect these two to have it. As long as he found out who really had it from these two, it would be the same. In the future, he could find a way to catch that person. However, if these two really didn't have it, he might as well kill them first. But at this moment, the other half-mermaid said, we only have the technique. Han Fei's eyes lit up, and he cursed. Then why don't you take it out? The Saintess is so powerful. As long as you deduce it with your supreme technique, you'll be able to figure out the technique, won't you? The half-mermaid opened its mouth. Is there such a peerless technique? Han Fei sneered. Even the Sea King has transformed into a heavenly law and educated all living creatures. How can the descendants of the Sea King not have such techniques? Take it out. Wait a moment. Let me make a copy. After a while, the half-mermaid took out a jade slip in a daze. He was still thinking, what kind of talent does the Sea King have? The Sea King's secret technique that he practiced was created by the Sea King, wasn't it? So, it shouldn't be difficult for his descendants to deduce a technique, right? Xia Xiaochan's eyes widened, and she kept blinking. She was really fooled by Han Fei. Han Fei took the humanoid technique, glanced at it, and a string of information popped up. Low-level human simulation technique. Spirit level, mid-quality. Introduction. The siren shape-shifting technique imitates the movements of humans and allows them to take human form. Practicing the human simulation technique can help improve the usage of combat techniques. Deduced art. Advanced human simulation technique deduction cost. 0/500 000. Han Fei didn't feel good when he saw the technique. Han Fei had always thought that the fish transformation technique could transform into a human and a fish when it was deduced to the highest level. But now that he thought about it, maybe he was wrong. The fish transformation technique was deduced to turn into a demon. Then, if a sea demon wanted to turn into a human, did it need a human simulation technique? So, there were actually two sets of techniques to begin with. He thought that one set of techniques could solve the problem. Immediately, Han Fei felt like vomiting blood. It only cost 500,000 points of spiritual energy, and it was a spirit-level, mid-quality technique. Son of AB *TCH. Empiricism is killing me. Little Six squinted at Han Fei. Human, why don't you give the human simulation technique to the Honorable Saintess? Han Fei nodded. Yes, you two did a good job. The Saintess will remember you. Pucci. The blood-drinking knife was unsheathed, and Han Fei killed the two of them in front of their pious eyes. The speed at which Han Fei turned hostile was even faster than a meteor. The hexagon starfish shuddered all over as it watched. When it saw the two of them take out the art of personification, it knew that they were done for. However, it didn't occur to it that Han Fei would attack so quickly and cleanly. He annihilated them in the blink of an eye. Han Fei took out their sea-swallowing seashells, grabbed the true spirit demonic scripture, and tossed it to Xia Xiaochan. Xia Xiaochan rushed over with a swish. What do you think? Is it okay? Han Fei grinned. Yes, it's not a problem. However, I still need to deduce it. First update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 732. Xia Xiaochan couldn't stay calm when she heard that Han Fei still needed to deduce it. You still need to deduce it? Han Fei waved his hand and said, It's easy. Look at this technique. It's only spirit level. It's not a big problem. Xia Xiaochan sat down in front of Han Fei because her lower body had turned into a fishtail. As soon as she sat down, her tail was about to move aside. She didn't care that Han Fei was looking at her tail at all and stared at him. Do you have any deduction techniques? Will you get hurt if you use this kind of technique? Han Fei raised his eyebrows. What do you mean? Xia Xiaochan narrowed her eyes and stared at Han Fei. I should have noticed it. Back then, Uncle Master Faceless mentioned that he would give you a low-level disguise spell technique. But what did you give me? Thousand Faces technique, demon level, divine quality. Han Fei smiled dryly. I got it by accident. Xia Xiaochan tilted her head in disbelief. What about the majestic mystic spell? It's also demon level, divine quality. Can you get a heaven level, divine quality one if you stay on the Scattered Stars Island for a while longer? Han Fei looked embarrassed. Needless to say, he really did think about it. After the Snow God's Temple, he had considered upgrading the majestic mystic spell. However, on the Scattered Stars Island, if he upgraded it, he could increase his strength by 5 times with a casual use. In that case, he would be too talented. It would be too high profile. Now, after being reminded by Xia Xiaochan, Han Fei realized that it was indeed necessary for him to deduce the majestic mystic spell. However, he realized that he was still too poor. Even a majestic mystic spell required tens of millions of points of spiritual energy to deduce. He only had a little more than 40 million points of spiritual energy now. How much spiritual energy would it cost to buy a personification technique? Xia Xiaochan stared at Han Fei. See, you don't know what to say, do you? So, you must have a deduction technique, and it must have side effects. Han Fei said timidly, if I tell you that the side effect is that you need to consume a lot of spiritual energy, do you believe me? Xia Xiaochan's eyes widened. You admit it? Don't you have tens of thousands of spiritual fruits? Han Fei silently took out a jade slip and handed it over. Xiao Xiaochan was confused. She took it and looked at it, and then her face changed. Demonic vein divine art? Heavenly level divine rank? This. Break the demon vein barrier and obtain a demon vein that can grow without any obstacles? Xiao Xiaochan's eyes widened. You deduced this too? Han Fei wondered if he should take out the demon god scripture. However, on second thought, the Fei god code was definitely not an ordinary cultivation technique. A simple deduction would cost 1 billion. Was this something an ordinary cultivation technique could achieve? Indestructible body only cost 100 million. The void fishing art only costs 100 million. Perhaps the next level would be even higher. But what would the next level be like? At least that was when he was a peak level hidden fisher. Han Fei thought for a moment. Don't be too excited. I deduced it by accident. Xiao Xiaochan was speechless. Why can't I get it out by accident? However, Xiao Xiaochan was not stupid. Just by looking at the introduction of the demonic vein divine formula, one could tell that it wasn't simple. It could already break the demon vein barrier. Was this something that an ordinary person could create? Xiao Xiaochan couldn't help but feel sorry for Han Fei. Did you use all your spiritual fruits to deduce this? Han Fei coughed. Well, more or less. Xiao Xiaochan asked. You even vomited blood from the deduction? Han Fei said awkwardly. That was just an accident. Xiao Xiaochan turned her face away. Idiot. Han Fei patted her tail. Go, go, go. Go back and continue your cultivation so that you can be fully transformed sooner. Now, 2 half-mermaids are missing. I think the higher-ups have noticed it. It's only a matter of time before they find this place. Right, when you're done with your cultivation, see if you can dig a hole under the spring of demonic demons. Xiao Xiaochan was stunned. How can we dig a hole under the spring of demonic demons? You're a human being. You can't withstand the demonic qi. Han Fei smiled casually. I'm fine with it. I can absorb a little. If I can't, Master Hexagon can do it. I'll hide in its door, and you dig out from below with it. The Hexagon starfish said, Starfish can't. Starfish can't absorb that much demonic qi. Han Fei said angrily, Shut up. If I say you can, you can. You can also set up an array for yourself. It won't be a problem. Han Fei changed the topic and looked at Xiao Xiaochan. Go and transform the demonic qi. Don't wait for them to come. You haven't transformed yet. Where can we find demonic qi then? The Hexagon starfish said, Actually, spiritual energy can be transformed into demonic qi too. Bam! Han Fei threw a stone at it. You talk too much and you're so capable. Why don't you go to heaven? Pucci. Xiao Xiaochan was amused by them. She immediately dived into the spring of demonic demons. If you can't deduce it, don't force yourself. We can always find a chance to improve our strength and catch more half-mermaids after we get out. Han Fei knew that even if he got the advanced human simulation technique, it would only be a simulation technique and couldn't transform him into a human being. So, Han Fei deduced it without any hesitation. Then, a string of information popped up. Advanced Human Simulation Technique, Demon Level, Low Quality, Introduction. This is a technique for sea demons to transform their bodies into human beings. They can simulate the behavior and dynamics of human beings to achieve the control of human beings. Practicing the human simulation technique can help improve the usage of combat techniques. Derived Technique. Low-level, shape-shifting technique deduction cost. 0/2 million. Han Fei was amused. This was cheap. It only cost 2 million points of spiritual energy. Although it cost 2 million points of spiritual energy to deduce a demon-level, low-quality technique, it was still a great improvement compared to the fish transformation technique. He deduced it. This time, Han Fei didn't even look at it. The low-level transformation technique was too low-level to be suitable for him. He decided to deduce it to an advanced level first. So, Han Fei spent 5 million to deduce the advanced transformation technique from the low-level transformation technique. He spent another 10 million to deduce the demon transformation technique from the advanced transformation technique. At this point, Han Fei discovered, to his surprise, that it was finally out. He had spent all his wealth but failed to get it. But he managed to get it with less than 20 million points of spiritual energy. A notification appeared in his eyes. Demon Transformation, Heaven Tier, Mid-Quality. Introduction. The Siren Transformation technique allows the user to transform their body into that of a human and mimics the meridians of a human to a high degree. This allows the user to slowly cultivate most of the human combat techniques. He was familiar with the meridians of a human body and was basically no different from a human. Derived Cultivation Technique. Demon Spirit Transformation Deduction Cost 0/20 000 000 Note 1. Easily seen through, often exposing demonic aura in battle, even unable to maintain the transformation technique. Note 2. Spiritual meridians above level 6 are required for cultivation. Han Fei's heart surged. Finally, it's here again. The demon transformation was clearly immature, so the demon spirit transformation was definitely the right choice. As for the rank 6 spiritual pulse, haha, Xia Xiaochan has a growing spiritual heritage. At this moment, although he didn't know exactly what level she was, she had become such a perfect mermaid, so her spiritual heritage must be above the 6th level. Keep pushing. Demon Spirit Transformation, Heaven Rank, High Quality, Introduction. See Demon Transformation. He could transform his body into that of a human and mimic the meridians of a human, allowing him to easily cultivate most of the human combat techniques. However, if they cultivated the major human professions, they would basically be no different from humans. Derived Cultivation Technique. Demon Spirit Transformation Deduction Cost 0/50 000 000 Note 1. His true self may be exposed at the most critical moment. It's hard to tell if he doesn't expose himself on purpose. Note 2. Spiritual meridians above level 7 are required for cultivation. Ooh, Han Fei suddenly stood up and grinned. He was about to inform Xia Xiaochan of the good news when he saw that a tremendous amount of demonic aura was crawling into Xia Xiaochan's body. Han Fei simply dragged the hexagon starfish over and asked, "What's going on?" The hexagon starfish rolled its eyes quickly. "I don't know. It seems that she is actively absorbing demonic aura, right?" Han Fei said angrily. "What do you mean by seems? If she is, then she is. If she isn't, then she isn't." The hexagon starfish nodded. "Yes." Han Fei simply sat down at the entrance of the cave. "Okay, let's wait for a moment." While waiting, Han Fei copied the demon spirit transformation. He planned to give Xia Xiaochan a surprise after she was completely transformed. As it turned out, he waited for a day and a night. Xia Xiaochan hadn't woken up yet, but Han Fei sensed the quakes from the wall. Han Fei's face suddenly changed. Not good. Why has someone come so quickly? Han Fei couldn't have looked more awful. At this moment, Xia Xiaochan was still cultivating. If someone disturbed her at this moment, the consequences would be dire. 6 hours later, the wall was shaking more and more violently. Suddenly, Han Fei felt a touch of perception, and that perception actually swept over him. Shoot, an expert. Han Fei's face changed greatly. His perception hadn't reached the wall yet, but the other party had already scanned him. What did this mean? It meant that the other party's perception was even stronger than his. Han Fei wasn't being narcissistic, but there shouldn't be anyone among the hanging fissures whose perception range exceeded his. Even for hidden fissures, how many of them could perceive 40 kilometers away? Han Fei didn't think it was possible. In any case, it meant that the other party was at least a hidden fissure, and definitely not a beginner hidden fissure. Han Fei immediately gritted his teeth, grabbed the hexagon starfish, and pressed it on his shoulder. His eyes were cold. "Seed, it's up to you whether or not you can resist this demonic aura. If I'm doomed, so are you. F***CK. The hexagon starfish said in horror. "What are you doing?" "No." Swish. Han Fei simply crawled into the spring of demonic beasts. Up above, a half-mermaid expert roared. "Damn it, it's really a human being. A human being is trying to destroy the demonic aura barrier. Get out of the way. I'll dig it out myself." Rumble's second. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 733. At this moment, Han Fei didn't know who was bombarding the belly of the mountain. However, This person was extremely strong. He must be a leader among the half-mermaids. After only one blow, rocks fell and almost pierced through the belly of the mountain. Han Fei grunted when he rushed to the center of the spring of demonic qi. As the demonic qi surged into his body, Han Fei felt that his eyes were changing and being covered by crimson. Inside his body, spiritual energy and demonic qi collided violently, causing him minor injuries. See, come on. Han Fei had absorbed demonic qi with the seed. However, when he was invaded by the demonic qi, he passed out. This time, Han Fei tried to guide the demonic qi to the seed. However, he found that the demonic qi wouldn't listen to him at all once it entered his body. A small amount of demonic qi was fine, but such a large amount of demonic qi made Han Fei's mouth and nose bleed. Fortunately, after Han Fei was injured, the seed did move. It began to slowly revolve and absorb the demonic qi. However, to Han Fei's surprise, not only did the seed move, but the bead of demonic qi in his body also began to glow. Han Fei couldn't help but be surprised. What was this bead? Han Fei knew that it was called demonic qi. The master of the snow god's temple, named Bingxue Chuling, once told him that. However, he didn't know how to use the demonic qi. Unexpectedly, it began to move at this moment. Han Fei immediately dragged Xia Xiaochan with the water control technique and shouted with bloodshot eyes, "Attach!" Because Xia Xiaochan had dug demonic stones once before, there was already a hole in the cave in the belly of the mountain. At this moment, Han Fei stirred the 9 chains and drilled into the ground like a drill. Boom! The belly of the mountain was bombarded again. Han Fei sensed that the wall was about to explode. He was greatly shocked. The half-mermaids were really fast. Did your ancestors work in the drilling industry? Even drilling rigs are not as fast as you. However, as soon as Han Fei spread out his senses, he was shocked to find that his senses were all shattered by the violent demonic qi, and he couldn't sense anything at all. So, he didn't know when the other party could break in. Forget it. Let's dig first. Shua, shua, shua. Han Fei was so anxious that all the blue sea wandering dragon daggers left his body. The 10,000 swords returning to origin transformed into a long dragon of light and shadow, drilling directly into the ground. Boom! The belly of the mountain opened, and a half-mermaid in a golden battle suit came out with cold eyes. Behind him, some of the weaker half-mermaids were immediately hit by the demonic qi and stepped back. The half-mermaid said, "Everyone below the level of a sea demon, retreat. Everyone else, activate the Sea King's secret technique, put on your battle suits, and activate the water shield." In front of this half-mermaid leader, a barrier of white light was blocking the demonic qi. However, his eyes were full of doubts. How could a human resist such a violent demonic aura? In fact, Han Fei didn't seem to be able to resist it. Inside the cave, he drilled into the ground like a human drill, but he was even scarier than a drill. Even a drill was not as fast as Han Fei. However, Han Fei discovered, to his shock, that there were demonic stones down there. There were low-grade demon stones, mid-grade demon stones, high-grade demon stones, and even a few supreme-grade demon stones. Han Fei's face changed immediately. No wonder the demonic qi here was so violent. Return. Han Fei didn't refuse. Although the demonic stones were useless, it was faster to collect them and forge the universe than to dig them out by himself. Besides, when he tried to absorb them, except for the hexagon starfish, little black, and little white, the rest of the 9-tailed mantis shrimp will become more or less violent after absorbing them. There are so many demonic stones here that even he was about to go crazy, so he simply threw them into Forge the Universe to reduce the demonic qi as much as possible. As a result, thousands of demonic stones were collected into Forge the Universe, and the violent demonic qi inside the belly of the mountain was weakened by 20%. My lord, is that really a human being? Why do I feel that he doesn't look like one? My lord, he can't survive after entering the demonic qi barrier, can he? The leading half-mermaid frowned. The demonic qi is too violent and can tear apart all senses. However, whether that guy is a human being or a demon, he's dead. No one can survive such a violent demonic aura. My lord, is it possible that he is a top expert? The half-mermaid shook his head. Impossible. If he were really a top expert, he wouldn't run away when he sees us. If he has the strength to rush into the demonic chi barrier, wouldn't it be easy for him to kill us? Unfortunately, it's too late to inform the 10,000 Demon Valley now. Otherwise, the experts of the 10,000 Demon Valley will definitely find out the truth. Han Fei had thought that in such a large mountain range where his perception couldn't penetrate through, it wouldn't be easy for the other party to find him so quickly. However, it only took a little more than a day for the other party to find him. It seemed that he had underestimated these half-mermaids. At this moment, Han Fei's muscles were tense. Even though the seed in his body was spinning and the demonic chi was flickering, Han Fei was still bleeding from his mouth and nose, and his whole body began to bleed under the impact of the demonic chi. At this time, Xia Xiaochan had slowly woken up. Seeing that Han Fei was covered in blood and was still crazily drilling down, she immediately understood what was going on. Xia Xiaochan said anxiously, "Big starfish, open the door." The hexagon starfish was also swaying at this moment. Its 6 eyes were scattered, and it kept throwing arrays on itself and Han Fei, trying to block or avoid the demonic chi. But in fact, it could only block a little bit of the demonic chi, not all of it. At this moment, the 6 claws of the hexagon starfish were spurting demonic chi out like fire-breathing plugs. Whatever it absorbed, it spewed out. This was quite a talent. Hearing Xia Xiaochan's call, the hexagon starfish came back to itself. With a burst of purple light, the next moment, Han Fei was put into the door by the hexagon starfish. With a thought, Xia Xiaochan separated some metamorphosis water and wrapped the hexagon starfish. At the same time, she turned the metamorphosis water into a mess-swallowing worm to take over Han Fei's work. In fact, Han Fei had already dug very deep. Xia Xiaochan originally thought that after digging down for another 100 meters, she would be able to find a direction to dig out. At that time, it would take the half-mermaids a lot of time to find her. Although the periphery might have been blocked, it was not a big deal for Xia Xiaochan. With the metamorphosis water, it was not difficult for her to run away. Even without the metamorphosis water, as long as she rushed to the surface of the sea and escaped on the wind god boat, no sea demons could catch up with her. However, as soon as Xia Xiaochan started to dig less than 50 meters, an emerald green color appeared in her eyes. It was a large amount of spirit awakening fluid, which dumbfounded Xia Xiaochan. The hexagon starfish was shocked. "I'm rich. There's so much spirit awakening fluid." Unfortunately, at this time, Han Fei was crazily absorbing demonic chi in the door of the hexagon starfish, and his whole body emitted a weird red color. He looked like a man of blood. The channel was drilled open, and the spirit awakening fluid gurgled out. In the blink of an eye, Xia Xiaochan and the hexagon starfish were wrapped in it, and the spirit awakening fluid was still coming out. The hexagon starfish immediately filled the door with spirit awakening fluid. Seeing that Han Fei was a little injured, he poured a large amount of spirit awakening fluid on Han Fei. Chilla. When the spirit awakening fluid encountered the weird demonic energy in his body, it was like pouring a basin of ice water on his head, making him shudder and open his eyes. Puff! Han Fei vomited a mouthful of blood. A large amount of spirit awakening fluid was submerged into his body and turned into a mysterious power, which was soothing the demonic chi. The redness in Han Fei's eyes lessened, and he asked in shock, "Where did the spirit awakening fluid come from?" The hexagon starfish said, "We fell into a pit of spirit awakening fluid. This is all spirit awakening fluid. I'll give you back 10,000 kilograms first." Han Fei was stunned. A pit of spirit awakening fluid? Wasn't I in the spring of demonic beasts? Why am I in a pit of spirit awakening fluid again? Han Fei immediately said, "Open the door and let me out." The hexagon starfish exclaimed, "Then what about the demonic chi in you?" Han Fei looked inside himself. only to find that the seed and the demonic energy were still devouring the demonic chi crazily. Besides, the spirit awakening fluid seemed to be soothing the demonic chi and increasing his body's tolerance to it. They seemed to be transforming his body, just like a body cleansing. Han Fei said, "I'm fine. Open the door. Don't try to keep it to yourself." The hexagon starfish was speechless. There's so much spirit awakening fluid. At this time, the hexagon starfish saw that Xia Xiaochan was also crazily absorbing the spirit awakening fluid since she fell into it. Immediately, the hexagon starfish opened the door and urged, "Hurry up, or there'll be no more left." No more? With a swish, Han Fei came out of the door. In the next second, he was shocked. Damn, how much spirit awakening fluid is there? However, Han Fei saw that Xia Xiaochan was floating in the spirit awakening fluid at this moment, emitting a holy blue light and a lot of dense white air. Seeing that the hexagon starfish was still stuffing spirit awakening fluid into the door, Han Fei slapped it. "Stop! Let Xia Xiaochan absorb it first." Han Fei sensed it. He looked around and found that there was not as much spirit awakening fluid as he thought when he first came out. However, there were definitely more than 100,000 kilograms. In the blink of an eye, at least 20,000 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid had been taken away by the hexagon starfish. The hexagon starfish didn't feel wronged. Anyway, it had taken a lot. If it didn't digest it quickly, it would be taken away by Han Fei in the end. So, the hexagon starfish lay on Han Fei's body and absorbed the spirit awakening fluid first. Seeing that Xia Xiaochan was crazily swallowing the spirit awakening fluid, Han Fei thought for a moment, about 100,000 kilograms, it shouldn't affect Xia Xiaochan if I take 10,000 kilograms. Anyway, the demon spirit transformation had been developed. So, with a thought from Han Fei, little black, little white, nine tails, little gold, and little fatty all came out. As soon as these guys came out, they were stunned. What's going on? Master made a fortune? The next second after they came out, these guys began to swallow the spirit awakening fluid crazily. Han Fei's eyes flickered. He didn't expect to dig out a piece of spirit awakening fluid by accident. If there was no accident, all of them would advance to level 40 this time. Third, asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 734. While they were absorbing the spirit awakening fluid, the half-mermaids outside were also stunned. So, there's spirit awakening fluid under the demonic spring? The half-mermaid leader and his subordinates all gasped. This was a secret that even they themselves did not know. After all, none of them could survive the demonic spring. At this moment, the half-mermaid leader roared, and the water around him rolled. Although he couldn't get in, he was a top expert after all, and it wasn't difficult for him to grab the spirit awakening fluid. So Xia Xiaochan was absorbing the spirit awakening fluid crazily. So were little black and little white. Han Fei accidentally discovered that at least tens of thousands of kilograms of spirit awakening fluid had been sucked out from the outside. At that time, he was anxious. The infinity water emerged, trying to block the exit. If it didn't work, he would have to stuff it in to forge the universe. It was impossible to give it to a half-mermaid. In the blink of an eye, after only a few minutes, Han Fei saw that the nine-tail mantis shrimp made a breakthrough. Little black and little white were shining with a strange luster, and little gold seemed to be about to make a breakthrough too. The amount of spirit awakening fluid in the cave was decreasing at a visible rate. Han Fei couldn't help but feel distressed. They were all foodies. None of them were easy to deal with. Outside, the half-mermaid leader burst into fury when it realized that it couldn't suck anymore. Damn it, shameless human beings. When you come out, I'll make sure you'll be pierced by 10,000 pitchforks. The half-mermaid leader roared. All of you, get out and lock down the entire sea demon mountain. Seal the underground and the surface of the sea. Don't let a single fish out. Yes, my lord. The half-mermaids accepted the order in unison. They were even thrilled that it was spirit awakening fluid under the demonic chi barrier. There were many places like the Sea Demon Mountain Range, and this was only one of their strongholds. They were not the only place with a demonic chi barrier. Once the news spread and the spirit awakening fluid was dug out, the strength of the sea demons would definitely increase greatly. At that time, their group of experts would definitely be able to get quite a bit. Becoming a sea spirit great monster was just around the corner. In the cave, Han Fei saw with his own eyes that Little Black and Little White had stopped absorbing the spirit awakening fluid. The two little guys began to swim around him, as if they were going to do some kind of breakthrough. Little Fatty puffed itself up, as if it were making a breakthrough too. The nine-tailed mantis shrimp and Little Gold were both level 38, so they were relatively slower. However, they were now level 39. At this rate, he would probably step into the bottleneck of level 40 in another 100 breaths. However, there was less and less spirit awakening fluid in the cave. There was about 70,000 to 80,000 kilograms left, but the half-mermaids extracted more than 10,000 kilograms. Master Hexagon stole some, and Little Black and Little White crazily swallowed it. As a result, there was less than half of the spirit awakening fluid left. Gulp! Han Fei felt distressed just by looking at it. Now, the spirit awakening fluid was being sucked away ton by ton, although he wanted to store it himself. For some reason, Xia Xiaochan was still devouring it. Judging from this situation, anyone could tell that Xia Xiaochan was not simple. Previously, he had only swallowed a few thousand kilograms, and he already felt like he had reached his limit. It seemed that the spirit awakening fluid couldn't improve him in the short term. Only when a large amount of demonic energy entered his body just now did he feel that the spirit awakening fluid was useful to him again. But Xia Xiaochan was different. She just kept sucking, 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 sucking. After about 10 minutes, Han Fei saw that there were only about 20,000 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid left, and the nine-tailed mantis shrimp and the others had all stopped swallowing. Only Xia Xiaochan was still swallowing. Han Fei immediately gritted his teeth, and with a thought, the seawater wrapped the spirit awakening fluid and enveloped Xia Xiaochan. The spirit awakening fluid was disappearing at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the light on Xia Xiaochan's body was getting brighter and brighter. Suddenly, Han Fei seemed to hear something. Did this voice come from Xia Xiaochan's body? Ji, what do you mean? Ji, the voice appeared again. Han Fei tried hard to listen. It's not Xia Xiaochan talking. Ji. After a while, there were only 10,000 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid left. Han Fei was a little worried about this amount. Was it enough for Xia Xiaochan? Han Fei shouted, Mr. Hexagon Starfish, give the spirit awakening fluid to Xia Xiaochan first. Knowing that it was a life-and-death moment, the Hexagon Starfish wasn't greedy and threw 10,000 kilograms to Xia Xiaochan. Han Fei glanced at it. Don't drink the rest in case it's not enough. Han Fei. Han Fei was bummed. What should I know? Bam! All of a sudden, terrifying and holy light burst out from Xia Xiaochan's body. Han Fei, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp, and the others were all blown away and hit the rock wall. Ji, Liao. At that moment, time seemed to be still, and the seawater seemed to be frozen. Han Fei felt that a voice from an extremely distant place echoed in his ears from the sky. What Han Fei didn't know was that the half-mermaid boss at the entrance of the demonic spring knelt on the ground with an indescribable fear in its heart when it heard the voice. It was a shiver from the bottom of its heart. At this moment, Old Bai, who was far away in the blue sea town, suddenly heard a voice from the sky. Ji, Liao. Old Bai suddenly stood up from his rocking chair, his face full of shock. How could it be so fast? On the Scattered Stars Island, Shuesh Shi suddenly raised his head and looked at the sky. He said gloomily, What's that sound? It covers hundreds of thousands of kilometers? In the Thousand-Star City, people's senses penetrated the void and seemed to be searching for the source of the sound. In those places, countless people looked up at the sky. Someone was surprised. Huh? What's that sound? Someone laughed and said, Could it be that someone is playing tricks? I've never heard such a sound before. Some top experts were shocked. What a shocking sound it is. Where did it come from? Someone stood proudly in the void and deduced with his fingers. His face became extremely solemn. This sound is in accordance with the laws of nature and covers at least 1,000,000 kilometers. Who is it? Is a peerless expert going to appear in the human world? Billions of kilometers away, in a magnificent palace, a middle-aged man suddenly opened his eyes. This is the shame of our race. That be asterisk star is indeed not dead. Find her and kill her. As the middle-aged man said that, hundreds of streaks of light scattered in the sky. Outside the scattered stars island, across the boundless sea and the extremely violent boundless sea, in the distant sky above an unknown ocean. Ji, Liao. When this voice sounded, a young man suddenly opened his eyes. The heavenly silkworm has been born. Is it that one? As soon as he said that, the young man crossed the boundless sea with one step and stepped in front of the boundless sea. Ji, Liao. The young man frowned. It's a second sound. The young man took another step forward, and he had already appeared in the terrifying endless sea. 1,000-meter-long flood dragon broke through the water, trying to tear apart the young man who suddenly appeared. However, the young man pointed his finger, and the thousands of kilometers of sea instantly collapsed, and the roaring flood dragon turned into a rain of blood in an instant. As if he had done a trivial thing, the young man took the third step. With this step, the young man had already crossed the boundless sea and appeared on a calm and tranquil sea. Ji, Liao. Hearing the third sound, the young man frowned even more. I can't make it in time. The heavenly silkworm has been born 3 times. I have to find her before the third sound falls. As he spoke, the young man was still standing on the sea. However, a shadow emerged from his body and tore apart space, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Inside the demonic spring in the Sea Demon Mountain, Han Fei vomited a mouthful of blood. When he heard the first sound of Ji, he knew that something big was about to happen. He saw a silkworm flapping its wings above Xia Xiaochan's head. It was just a silkworm, but it was sacred in Han Fei's eyes. It seemed that nothing in the world deserved to be mentioned in the same breath as its holiness. Gudu, Han Fei saw that a pair of transparent wings were slowly unfolding on Xia Xiaochan's back. Xia Xiaochan seemed to be struggling. As she slowly opened her eyes, she saw Han Fei looking at her in shock. Xia Xiaochan was at a loss. What's wrong with me? Han Fei's eyelids shivered, and he immediately came back to himself. You look to the side. Xia Xiaochan turned her head in confusion, only to be stunned. She found that a pair of wings had grown out of her body. If it weren't for the colorful brilliance on the wings, she wouldn't have recognized that they were wings. Xia Xiaochan was dumbfounded. She looked at Han Fei at a loss and cried, Why? Why do I have wings again? Han Fei stepped forward and recalled Little Black, before he came to Xia Xiaochan's side. Don't panic. It's not a big problem. You might just not have fully evolved yet. Come on, I've just figured out a way to turn you into a human. Let's train for a while and go back to the Scattered Stars Island. As he spoke, Han Fei took out the demon spirit transformation and gave it to Xia Xiaochan. Han Fei thought that it couldn't be a small matter. He had to go back and find old Jiang directly. Yes, he decided to lay all his cards on the table. He couldn't keep it a secret any longer. He had to find someone who could protect Xia Xiaochan. Rumble. However, as soon as Han Fei said that, the mountain fell apart, and the walls were full of cracks. The whole mountain collapsed. If it had just collapsed, Han Fei might have thought that it was because he and Xia Xiaochan had absorbed all the spirit awakening fluid here, thus causing the turbulence. However, the next scene told him that he thought too much. That was because the entire mountain range had flown into the air. Fourth update, asking for votes. Everyone, remember the monthly votes for tomorrow. I overestimated my speed. It seems that I can't reveal my identity until tomorrow. Tomorrow is the beginning of the month. Strongly asking for votes. The 400,000 words update this month really makes my blood freeze, and I almost vomit blood. I really spent all my time on this. End of this chapter. Chapter 735. Not just Xia Xiaochan, even Han Fei was dumbfounded. The mountains collapsed, and the mountains reached the sky. The entire Sea Demon Mountain spanned more than 800 kilometers. Who had ever seen such a scene before? The half-mermaid experts who hadn't left the sea demon mountain in time all kneeled on the ground. Some even crawled on the ground. They wanted to get up, but they couldn't at all. At this moment, they all wanted to know what was going on in fear. The half-mermaid leader was still guessing. Holding back the uncanny pressure, he shouted, "Is it an expert from the royal city? I'm Yulian." However, there was no response from the void. At the same time, an oppressive aura descended within 3,000 kilometers of the sea demon mountain range. All the sea demons were instantly crushed, and not a single one was spared. The mountain range moved into the void. The gloomy coldness made many half-mermaids stiffen all over. Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan, on the other hand, didn't feel anything except the coldness. Han Fei swallowed. He knew that things had changed a lot, but he didn't expect it to be so drastic. He immediately looked at Xia Xiaochan solemnly and struggled in his heart. He felt that neither Old Bai nor Old Jiang could have moved mountains and seas. That meant that this was a super expert who was stronger than them, and he was doing something. The super expert must have come for Xia Xiaochan. After all, Xia Xiaochan's changes were too shocking. She didn't look like an ordinary person. If she was a top expert, why was she looking for Xia Xiaochan? Xia Xiaochan wasn't from the Blue Sea town. Maybe she was hiding from something. But in any case, Han Fei felt that there might be a battle to be fought. However, it was obvious that he and Xia Xiaochan couldn't defeat the enemy. Han Fei simply took out the golden battle suit that he looted and gave it to Xia Xiaochan. "You can put on now." Xia Xiaochan held Han Fei's arm tightly. "What about you? What are you going to wear?" Han Fei thought of something and put on his golden battle suit too. "I have one too." Xia Xiaochan panicked. "Let's run. Take the wind god boat and run." Han Fei nodded quickly, but the hexagon starfish rolled its big eyes. "There's nowhere to run. They've all been sealed. We can't even run out of this small hole." Han Fei's face changed drastically. He tried to rush up, but a flash of profound light slapped him down. Han Fei was dumbfounded. F***CK. "Don't panic, I still have a way." Han Fei decided to take Xia Xiaochan into the demon purification pot first. As long as he could avoid this crisis, the demon purification pot would be exposed. At that time, he could brag that he had mastered a godly skill. In the end, Han Fei tried, only to find that the demon purification pot simply ignored him. Han Fei closed his eyes angrily, trying to take the demon purification pot out. As a result, Han Fei felt that 10,000 ironhead fish were running over his heart. The demon purification pot disappeared? Yes, where was the demon purification pot? In any case, it was gone. Damn it. Han Fei took a breath and tried to calm himself down. What other tricks did he have? What other tricks did he have? Sky-severing finger. Han Fei's eyes flickered. Yes, it was the sky-severing finger. This was his strongest trump card. However, Han Fei looked at his reserve of spiritual energy. There were only more than 5 million points left, less than 6 million points. He panicked. The sky-severing finger seemed to be useless, even if it was less than 10 million points of spiritual energy. He didn't have enough spiritual energy. Immediately, Han Fei asked, "Xia Xiaochan, do you still have spiritual energy or something like that?" Xia Xiaochan shook her head dully. "No, I threw them all to you." Han Fei glanced at the hexagon starfish. "What about you? Now's a crisis. How much spiritual energy do you have? Give it all to me." The hexagon starfish was speechless. How can a starfish have so much spiritual energy? The starfish's treasure house is full of shiny stones. Han Fei turned to any doctor he could find in an emergency. How much spiritual energy could the hexagon starfish have? Usually it asked for it from him or Xia Xiaochan. At this moment, there was nothing in the cave except spirit awakening fluid. What was the use of spirit awakening fluid at this time? The spirit awakening fluid couldn't be used as spiritual energy. Han Fei decided to take a gamble if he didn't have enough spiritual energy. After all, he had the immortal seal. However, Han Fei forgot that the sky-severing finger was in Forge the Universe. He tried to summon it, but Forge the Universe was gone too. While Han Fei was anxious, his eyes suddenly glittered. Then, the sea demon mountain began to fall. Bam! What did it mean when a mountain 800 kilometers fell into the sea? It immediately set off a monstrous wave. Gotcha! Bam! The mountain that Han Fei was on exploded in an instant, as if half of the mountaintop had been cut off. At this point, Han Fei saw a half-mermaid expert crouching on the ground and shivering not far away. But that wasn't the point. On the other side, Han Fei saw a man slowly walking from the seawater. It was an extraordinarily handsome young man. His back was straight, his face was handsome, and the corners of his mouth were slightly upward, with a hint of an evil smile. He strolled to a place dozens of meters away from them. Sure enough, you're not dead. I didn't expect that you would be hidden in this remote, desolate land. My dear little princess, I'm here to take you home. Huh? Xia Xiaochan immediately grabbed Han Fei's arm. She couldn't have been more scared. Han Fei, on the other hand, looked at Xia Xiaochan in shock. So, he wasn't an enemy. Han Fei immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Everything was fine as long as he wasn't an enemy. Xia Xiaochan said, I'm not a princess. I'm a human being. The corner of the young man's mouth curled into a beautiful arc. His voice was full of magnetism as he unhurriedly said, Interesting answer. To some extent, you're indeed a human being. However, you'd better give up that identity. Because someone wants you dead because the heavenly cicada has shocked the world. You can only be safe if you come with me. Xia Xiaochan pulled Han Fei and stepped back in panic. I am not leaving. My home is here. I'm not leaving. The young man glanced at Han Fei indifferently, and then at the half-mermaids prostrating on the ground. The young man asked with a smile, Little princess, are they your subordinates? Xia Xiaochan subconsciously shook her head. The young man smiled casually. That's good. Even if they are, I can't take them away. So just kill them all. The half-mermaid leader's body shook like a cork. However, he couldn't say anything at all. He felt that he was caught in boundless fear. The young man didn't move at all, but ripples spread out from his feet. The ripples instantly swept across the entire sea demon mountain. To Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan's shock, the half-mermaid leader's flesh and bones melted. It felt like a basin of clean water washing a piece of mud. It couldn't have been easier. Han Fei was instantly shocked. Although he didn't know what level the half-mermaid was at, it was a fact that he had blown through the mountain in a moment. His strength was definitely much stronger than his own. However, in front of this young man, these powerful half-mermaids were nothing at all. He didn't even need to lift a finger to kill them. What Han Fei didn't know was that more than 500 half-mermaids had been killed at the same time. Their deaths were exactly the same as the half-mermaid leaders. They both melted away like snow in an instant, leaving nothing behind. As if he had done something insignificant, the young man was still looking at Xia Xiaochan with a smile. Little princess, is this human your friend? Xia Xiaochan shivered and stood before Han Fei, staring at the young man stubbornly. The man was too strong, so strong that Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan didn't even have the courage to fight him. He was even so strong that the demon purification pot had to hide. The young man smiled. You're not bad to be a friend of the little princess. You're indeed weak, but you could have survived if you hadn't seen the heavenly cicada. The moment the young man said that, Han Fei was enraged. Was this guy going to kill him? Xia Xiaochan even roared, Don't touch him. I order you not to touch him. The young man smiled casually and tilted his head. In the next moment, Xia Xiaochan was frozen, and the seawater seemed to have turned into a cage, making it impossible for her to move. The young man chuckled and said in a feminine voice, It's true that you are a princess, but you're not qualified to order me. It's not easy to take you back. You must know that the person who wants to kill you is very, very strong. Xia Xiaochan struggled hard. Stop. You can't kill him. He's my boyfriend. Woo! Xia Xiaochan's mouth was sealed. The young man raised a finger and waved it gently. TSK, TSK, TSK. Little princess, you can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. How can he be your boyfriend? Huh? With a dragon roar, the phantom of the giant arowana appeared, and Xia Xiaochan broke the seal on her mouth. If you dare to kill him, I'll kill myself. Huh? A giant arowana? The young man immediately smiled. No wonder, no wonder. You've even awakened a giant arowana. That's great. I'm sure that I can protect you now. Xia Xiaochan's eyes were cold. I'll go with you. You let him go. Clack. The young man snapped his fingers, and Xia Xiaochan's mouth was sealed again, and the giant arowana simply disappeared. The young man slightly shook his head. Princess Mingzhu, you may not understand the situation. He must die. You could take revenge on me in the future, or even try to kill yourself in the future. But now, he really must die. The first chapter of the month was crazily asking for monthly votes. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that the main purpose of this plot was to take Xia Xiaochan away. But in fact, it was not. There were many purposes to take her away, and the author would think from a long-term perspective. Someone has been restraining the protagonist. The rise of the protagonist is mostly a lone hero. Secondly, this kind of plot design is also to lengthen and extend the main plot. Trust me, the plot design will be more diverse. As for Xia Xiaochan's name, it was conceived a long, long time ago, so the name has the word Chan in it. What do you mean by the halo of the heroine is too strong? Next, please look at the halo of the male protagonist. Votes again, monthly votes, monthly votes. Please, everyone, into this chapter. Chapter 736. Han Fei's heart was already cold when he heard that. He felt that he was dead for sure. However, Han Fei was sure that Xia Xiaochan would be fine. So, the key was to save himself. He kept thinking about the demon purification pot. Master Calabash, it's not too late for me to go in. Let me enter Forge the Universe. Master Calabash, I really can't do this. Master Calabash, can you give me some reaction? What good will it do you if I die? The demon purification pot didn't respond, and Han Fei was confused. Countless thoughts flashed in his head. Why didn't the demon purification pot come out? Was it afraid that this man would discover something? Or rather, Forge the Universe was not invincible in front of absolute experts. Could Forge the Universe be breached? All in all, there had to be a reason why the demon purification pot didn't come out. If he couldn't count on the demon purification pot, what else could Han Fei count on? Snowmorn? Han Fei knew that it was impossible after thinking for a moment. Snowmorn was strong, but there was a limit. Han Fei thought that even if he instilled all his spiritual energy into Snowmorn, it might not be able to hurt this man at all. However, Snowmorn could be used as a backup. If he was killed, what was the use of the sea-quelling bizarre treasure? He didn't even know if it would work if he didn't use it. What Han Fei regretted was that he didn't have enough spiritual energy. Otherwise, Han Fei thought that he could try his best with the sky-dissecting finger. Of course, the demon purification pot was gone, and the sky-dissecting finger was placed in Forge the Universe. He couldn't sense Forge the Universe at all, so he couldn't use the sky-dissecting finger even if he wanted to. Han Fei clenched his fists and suddenly remembered that he had a ring on his hand. Senior Time, can you give me a hand? Senior Time, I have a lot of potential. I won't mistreat little Time in the future. Senior Time, unfortunately, the ring didn't respond at all and completely ignored Han Fei. Han Fei sighed. He couldn't count on the hexagon starfish, could he? This guy was already pretending to be dead. But what was the point of playing dead at this moment? Was he trying to deceive himself? Han Fei sighed. Master Hexagon Starfish, just follow Xia Xiaochan. Xia Xiaochan was still struggling, tears streaming down her face. Han Fei even let the big starfish go. She felt that Han Fei had given up. Han Fei looked at the man and said, I don't know what kind of experts you are, but the hexagon starfish is a mysterious creature with countless inherited talents and arrays. It should be quite rare. How about letting it follow Xia Xiaochan? The young man looked at Han Fei with a smile. You finally chose to give up? Sure. The hexagon starfish was indeed extraordinary and could even be said to be rare in the world. It's fine to let it follow the little princess. Han Fei helplessly took out the essence blood of the hexagon starfish and gave it to this guy. I was going to sign a labor contract with you for a few more years. Forget it. I'll return the blood essence to you. Go. The hexagon starfish rolled its big eyes. Han Fei said angrily, get lost. Believe it or not, I'll regret it and bring you down with me. Han Fei pulled down the hexagon starfish and put it on Xia Xiaochan. When the young man saw this, he was quite impressed. Actually, if it was any other time, you could be considered a good person. Logically speaking, I shouldn't kill you. However, you have a reason to die. You saw the birth of the heavenly cicada. If you don't die, the little princess will be in danger. In the future, someone will definitely come to find you. Han Fei asked, "What about the immortal seal?" The young man shook his head. "It's just a small trick." With that said, the young man nodded slightly to Han Fei. "I sincerely thank you for taking care of the little princess. So if you have any last wishes, feel free to tell me." Han Fei said coldly, "Can I ask for anything?" The young man shook his head slightly. "Don't push your luck. I won't participate in the war between humans and sea demons." Han Fei looked at Xia Xiaochan and suddenly said, "Do you remember the last day in the level 3 fishery? We were chased in the Hurricane Sea area, and you had an attack. Next, no matter what you see, just remember one thing. The result this time is the same as that time, but you may not be able to see it." Xia Xiaochan's eyes widened, not knowing whether to believe him or not. At that time, she thought Han Fei was killed, but in fact, it was just a clone. Han Fei said it was a low-quality divine weapon. But this time, could it be the same? Han Fei said again, "Trust me." With that, Han Fei no longer looked at Xia Xiaochan, but stared at the young man. "I don't have any last wishes, but I'm very aggrieved. I want to fight." With that, Han Fei pointed the blood-drinking knife at the young man. "I want to fight with you. Of course, you have to suppress your realm to fight with me." The young man froze for a moment. "Ha ha." Like a lunatic, he laughed wildly and said, "That's interesting. I didn't expect that there would be such an interesting person like you in this desolate land. At the moment of death, all you want to do is fight with me? You're really interesting." "I agree." The young man took a step forward, and his aura was suddenly reduced to that of an intermediate hanging fisher, the same realm as Han Fei. With a smile, he said softly, "Come on." Han Fei said, "Wait a minute. What? I just felt that you were a little interesting. Don't let me down." Han Fei said coldly, "Tell me your name." The young man thought carefully for a moment. "You died a wrong death. You're indeed qualified to know my name. Remember, you were killed by Chun Huangdian. That's something to be proud of." "Chun Huangdian?" Han Fei secretly sneered. What kind of name was that? It sounded like a technique. However, Han Fei remembered this name deeply and firmly. Attach. Majestic mystic spell. In the next moment, little Fatty was attached to him. The seawater spread out. Knowing that he was going to die, Han Fei wasn't scared anymore. His eyes were full of craziness. Shua, shua, shua. 10,000 knives in one. The 200 blue sea wandering dragon daggers were accelerated to the highest speed at this moment. The saber waves formed by the saber auras were endless and swept at Chun Huangdian. Unfortunately, Chun Huangdian's hands were as smooth as jade. In the blink of an eye, he turned into infinite shadows and pointed hundreds of times with a weird movement technique. Every time he pointed, a blue sea wandering dragon dagger would break. While attacking casually, Chun Huangdian said, "You can't hurt me with this technique unless you really have 10,000 ultra-quality spiritual weapons with sealed souls. You'll see a different world when you're different." This technique could only be considered ordinary. It was still a far cry from the title of a genius. "Do you have any other methods?" Han Fei concentrated all the spiritual energy in his body into the attack. Draw technique. Han Fei had gone crazy after the attack. His spirit was raised to the maximum. The blood-drinking knife was shattered, and a 5-meter-long, terrifying aura of the knife fell before the young man. Chun Huangdian quickly stepped back with appreciation in his eyes. At the same time, the most dazzling light burst out of his 2 fingers. He clasped Han Fei's knife aura with his fingers. Saber intent swept out from the youth's fingertips, shattering the mountain rocks as the saber intent surged. Chun Huangdian said casually, "This attack is not bad. It contains a hint of invincibility. Unfortunately, it's not a real art of invincibility. Based on this saber strike, you're not bad among the younger generation. Your aptitude is above average." Han Fei roared, and golden light flashed on his fists. Pictures flashed in his head. The golden fists were punched out. Every punch seemed to be a self-exile and an unyielding struggle between life and death. Chun Huangyan's lips curled. TSK, TSK. You do have an art of invincibility. Unfortunately, you've only scratched the surface. However, with just this little bit of knowledge, he deserves to be called a hero. Han Fei's art of invincibility was getting fiercer and fiercer. The 64-dimensional fish dragon dance was simulating movement techniques and combining the roaming technique, the hunting technique, the shadow swimming technique, and many other movement techniques, making Han Fei as fast as a ghost. The golden fists bombarded Chun Huangyan from all directions, but the latter's movement technique was even weirder, as if there were 100 shadows at the same time. Every punch of the art of invincibility was taken by Chun Huangyan without any mistakes. Not bad. It seems that your art of invincibility has been improved at the moment of death. You're qualified to be called a heavenly talent. Is that all? Huh. Han Fei's eyes were bloodshot, and the fists in his hands turned from gold to crimson. He launched the sacrificing punch with overwhelming killing intent and the determination of a dying strike. Seeing the punch, the young man's face slightly changed. Suddenly, he was enshrouded in holy light. He had used a secret technique. After all, he was not invincible even though he was suppressed to the level of an intermediate hanging fisher. He still had to be careful when he was faced with the sacrificing punch. Han Fei's sacrificing punch was a powerful technique that locked onto the target. Chun Huangyan had noticed it the moment the punch was formed. No matter how great he was when he was young, he wasn't invincible. So, faced with the sacrificing punch, Chun Huangyan finally got serious. One finger break the sea, like a streak of cold brilliance. Chun Huangyan's fingertip gathered into the sharpest saber in the world, which pierced through the sacrificing punch after a single attack. Coiling Dragon. Before Chun Huangyan, the illusion of an azure dragon hovered and took the remaining power of the sacrificing punch. He was blown away more than 200 meters by the punch. Unfortunately, the sacrificing punch failed to penetrate the illusion of the azure dragon. It only made Chun Huangyan look slightly awful. Han Fei, on the other hand, stepped on the coiling turtle array, but it was broken instantly. He didn't even have a chance to resist the finger for a few milliseconds. Bam! The protective jade appeared, but it was still broken. Han Fei, however, simply ignored the finger. He burned his essence blood and condensed golden light on his fist again. Crack! Crack! His arm was pierced through. Poochie! A finger hole appeared on Han Fei's chest. Then, Han Fei exploded, and his flesh and bones fell into the pool of spirit awakening fluid in the cave. Little Fatty couldn't resist the blow either and collapsed with Han Fei. But before that, Han Fei had used the immortal seal. Xiao Xiaochan burst into tears as she watched from the side. She was so sad. The hexagon starfish was trembling all over. It was horrifying. The enemy was so strong that Han Fei couldn't hurt him at all even after he used all his ultimate moves. Asking for votes. 3,000 plus. End of this chapter. Chapter 737. Han Fei had never known what it felt like to be resurrected with the immortal seal. He didn't know until this moment when he used it. At that moment, he found that he didn't create a new version of himself. Instead, at the moment of his death, a terrifying force forcefully pulled his body into an empty space. The body that was shattered outside was actually not his original body, but a power of the immortal seal, which was equivalent to a death substitution technique. However, although Han Fei used the immortal seal to die in his place, little Fatty was really shattered. Han Fei saw a gate in the chaos and void. He knew that he would be reborn if he walked out of it. He had to walk out of it. This was because there was a powerful suction force there that was forcefully pulling him out. Also, his whole plan had never been for himself. When Han Fei reappeared, Chun Huangyan was looking at him with a smile. In fact, it's easy to crack this death substitution technique. However, since you want to fight, I'll satisfy you. Do you have any other methods? For example, a naturally endowed spiritual beast. Han Fei said calmly, "My naturally endowed spiritual beast is a spirit-swallowing fish. It doesn't have any combat ability. Let's launch the final attack." Having experienced the feeling of death once, Han Fei knew that he might really die this time. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The golden fist mark was condensed, and Han Fei's essence blood was burning. It was extremely brilliant. However, there was a hint of disappointment in Chen Huangyan's eyes. However, on second thought, he realized that it did make sense. It was already remarkable that Han Fei could become so strong in this desolate land. It would be too much to ask him to be like the real, peerless heavenly talents. Chen Huangyan chuckled. "Goodbye." He performed the Howren finger out of nowhere. When Chen Huangyan pointed his finger, Han Fei looked at Xia Xiaochan and said, "Trust me." Bam! Boom! Han Fei was ready to embrace death when he suddenly saw the illusion of a giant hand that seemed to have burst out of his body. Han Fei had seen the giant hand before. Olbai had once used this trick when he attacked. Immediately, Han Fei realized what was going on. They didn't know when Olbai had secretly planted a dying strike in their bodies. The reason why he didn't tell them was that he was afraid that they wouldn't be afraid. However, even when he saw this big hand phantom, he didn't feel excited at all. He knew that his attack still couldn't block Chen Huangyan's attack. As he expected, Chen Huangyan put on a disdainful smile. An explorer-level protection. It seems that this desolate land isn't too desolate after all. Unfortunately, even if your main body was here, you wouldn't be able to protect this child. Bang! Having recovered his strength, Chen Huangyan no longer suppressed his level. He pressed his finger, and Olbai's grand void handprint exploded. However, it was still an explorer-level handprint. Chen Huangyan's attack was basically blocked, but part of its power still leaked out. Han Fei wondered if this person was an explorer. Han Fei didn't know that in fact, the person in front of him was just a soul brand. However, the last bit of power still shattered half of Han Fei's body. Half of Han Fei's chest was torn apart, and he fell into the pool of spirit awakening fluid. At that moment, Han Fei thought that waiting for death didn't feel good at all. Cicada. When Han Fei really died, Xia Xiaochan went crazy. The heavenly cicada floated above her head and burst out a weird power, freeing herself from the shackles. The terrifying power made Chen Huangyan step back. He could only squint at Xia Xiaochan and mumble, "It's indeed worth looking forward to." Xia Xiaochan threw herself before Han Fei, sobbing so hard that she was barely recognizable. In Xia Xiaochan's eyes, Han Fei was comforting her. She felt that Han Fei had used all his trump cards. He had used everything that she could and didn't expect. At this moment, Han Fei was lying on the ground without any vitality. His body had mostly collapsed. How could he still be alive? Xia Xiaochan turned around quickly. "Save him! Save him! I want to take him with me. Please." Chen Huangyan saw it, but he was not moved at all. He simply said casually, "You can't save a completely dead person. Even if you can reverse time, you'll have to pay a heavy price. Besides, I'm not capable of that." Knowing that her words were useless, Xia Xiaochan's eyes were bloodshot. "You have to kill me too. Otherwise, I'll definitely kill you in the future." Chen Huangyan shrugged. "Of course, as long as you like it, little princess. Then, you can settle the score with me when you're strong enough to kill me. Now, I don't have much time left. It's time to go." To find Xia Xiaochan, Chen Huangyan paid a price too. His original body was still in the boundless ocean. At this moment, there was no telling how he reached this place. But thinking about it, being able to traverse billions of territories definitely wasn't something that came without a price. At this moment, Xia Xiaochan was full of helplessness. Sad? She couldn't even be described as sad anymore. Her mind was sinking, and her soul was breaking. The only thing that Xia Xiaochan could do was to hold on to Han Fei's broken body. Chen Huangyan tilted his head and said softly, "Take one last look at him. Time to go." "No." As a teardrop fell out of Xia Xiaochan's eyes, her body had been forcibly clasped and disappeared in the sea that seemed to be enshrouded by death. However, even Chen Huangyan didn't notice it. The teardrop, glittering in the dark seawater, fell next to Han Fei and didn't disperse. Instead, it condensed into a drop of water with a faint blue color. Old Jiang was fiddling with his sugar and trying to make braised pork at this moment. He ignored the earth-shattering sound of the heavenly cicada a moment ago because he couldn't. Crack! At this moment, the fragrance of the braised pork was already filling his nose. Suddenly, with a soft noise, old Jiang's hands suddenly stopped. Han Fei's life tablet was broken. Hum! In the twisted jungle, a soaring killing intent surged into the sky. In the sky, an unparalleled array suddenly appeared. Who did it? The moment the twisted jungle broke out, dozens of figures in the transverse mountain, the depths of the twisted jungle, and the central city of the Scattered Stars Island came to the twisted jungle in a few steps. Led by Xue Shenqi, he looked at old Jiang and asked, "Master Jiang, why are you so angry?" At this moment, old Jiang glanced at the people around him coldly. "I'm going to see. Whoever dares to stop me, don't blame me for being ruthless." While everybody was paying attention to old Jiang, on the 4th floor of the Scattered Stars prison, a person disappeared from the 4th floor as if he had teleported, never to be seen again. In the twisted jungle, Xue Shenqi narrowed his eyes. He knew that something big must have happened. First, there were the 3 cries of silkworms, and then old Jiang suddenly burst out. Was there something he didn't know? Also, what were the 3 cries of silkworms? Where did they come from? Was it related to the Thug Academy? At this moment, old Jiang was furious to the extreme. From his point of view, this was something that was almost impossible. How could Han Fei die? When old Bai gave him the life tablets of the 5 prisoners, he clearly told him that he had set up a dying strike in each of them. Even though Han Fei couldn't fight back at all under certain circumstances, was old Bai's dying strike a joke? When explorers took action, who around the Scattered Stars Island could defeat them in a short time. But just now it happened almost instantly. Even he didn't sense it, and Han Fei died? What did it mean? It was a full-strength strike of at least an explorer. Only by shattering old Bai's seal in an instant could it be done. However, how many people on the Scattered Stars Island, or even 1,000 Star City, could do that? While the twisted jungle was in chaos, and Xue Shenqi was thinking about how to talk to old Jiang, a boat flew close quickly from the sky. The newcomer's strength was also not weak. He was an 8-star expert. He had no time to care about what was happening in the twisted jungle. At this moment, the man said in panic, "General, the Sea Demon Mountain is gone." Xue Shenqi. Old Jiang. Everyone. Xue Shenqi frowned. "Don't panic. What do you mean by the Sea Demon Mountain is gone? You mean the Sea Demon Mountain 130,000 kilometers away from the Scattered Stars Island? What happened?" The 8-star expert said weirdly, "It's really gone. The Sea Demon Mountain that spanned more than 800 kilometers has been completely uprooted. It's nowhere to be found." Xue Shenqi staggered. "What did you say?" Old Jiang and the other experts were shocked too. What was going on? A mountain that spanned more than 800 kilometers had been uprooted? Everybody looked at each other in bewilderment. This was just 2F*King ridiculous. That was equivalent to half of the Scattered Stars Island. It had been uprooted? Was it a joke? Xue Shenqi looked at old Jiang. "Mr. Jiang, shall we go and take a look?" A moment later, Xue Shenqi and old Jiang looked at the desolate, messy bottom of the sea in shock. There was not a single sea demon around. However, they sensed that a tremendous number of sea demons had perished here. But what kind of power could cause so many sea demons to fall in an instant? Even their bodies couldn't survive? Xue Shenqi said solemnly. They were indeed uprooted by force. Immediately, Xue Shenqi's face changed. "Everybody, search within 500,000 kilometers." Old Jiang, on the other hand, looked cold. What secret was old Bai hiding? Naturally, he had heard the 3 cries of the silkworm earlier. However, he didn't think that it was Han Fei. But at this moment, it must be related to Han Fei. If it wasn't Han Fei, it had to be Xia Xiaochan. So, a question popped up in old Jiang's heart. Who was Xia Xiaochan exactly? Second update. Asking for votes. 3,000 plus. End of this chapter. Chapter 738. The Scattered Stars Island was fine. Except for old Jiang who went to sea, Shueishenshi only activated Level 1 alert to ensure that the Scattered Stars Island would be in a state of war at any time. Of course, the so-called state of war was only against the sea demons. However, everybody knew that the Sea Demon Mountain couldn't have been moved away by just defending against the sea demons. Shueishenshi even suspected that a venerable expert had arrived. However, what puzzled everybody was why the man moved the Sea Demon Mountain away. The sea demons were even more panicked than the human beings. There were many sea demons' territories around the Scattered Stars Island. The sea demons began to hide the moment they learned the news. They had to hide. The entire Sea Demon Mountain was razed to the ground overnight. 16 sea demons at the level of hidden fissures had died. One sea demon above level 60, a powerful sea spirit, perished. Countless other sea demons were killed and wounded, which scared the rest of the sea demons. 1,000,000 kilometers away from the Scattered Stars Island, there was an enormous cylindrical building where many powerful sea demons were having a meeting. The meeting had been going on for 3 days. In the city, inside an undersea volcano, some people were riding enormous war seahorses, some were riding red lobsters, and some were standing on jellyfish that were glittering with lightning. They were all arguing. A half-mermaid roared. It must be a human expert who took action. How can we just sit and watch? We must ask the capital to send a top expert to fight them. Someone was more conservative. Human beings? Which human being can move the Sea Demon Mountain? If such an expert were to take action, the Sea Demon Mountain wouldn't have been destroyed. Chances are that even this place would have been razed to the ground. If it's not a human being, who is it? I don't think it's a good time to take action. If it's a human being, all the sea demons should stay away from the danger and observe what the human beings will do next. If there's a follow-up, the capital won't let it go. Huh, shut up, all of you. Someone rode an enormous two-headed shark. I hereby announce that the large-scale war with human beings will be suspended. The destruction of the Sea Demon Mountain won't be a great blow, but it will be a great blow to our morale. Let's rest for a while. My lord, shut up. Someone wanted to say something, but the commander's eyes narrowed. It's not completely silent. Let's see if we can gather some opportunities. In the future, I will attack the humans. Just when the humans and the sirens had their own plans. 2,000,000 kilometers away from the Scattered Stars Island, the Sea Demon Mountain lay quietly in a trench. None of the creatures dared to approach the Sea Demon Mountain range within 3,000 kilometers. The powerful aura left behind here made the surrounding living beings choose to flee immediately. The demonic barrier on the Sea Demon Mountain had been broken when Chun Huangdian moved the mountain by force. At this moment, a pile of broken bodies was lying in a pool of spirit awakening fluid. Not only Han Fei, but Little Fatty was also in the remains. This was Han Fei's last resort and his last trump card. Little Fatty was level 39 in the first place, and after swallowing a lot of spirit awakening fluid, it reached level 40 very quickly. He was betting that the level 49 death soul splitting octopus could be reborn from a single drop of blood, which could save his life. Judging from Chun Huangdian's attitude towards Xia Xiaochan might have a great enemy, but Chun Huangdian would protect her. That was enough. Now that Xia Xiaochan was safe, Han Fei certainly wouldn't risk his life. So, he really tried his best in the last battle. He destroyed all 200 Blue Sea Wandering Dragon Daggers to give Chun Huangdian the illusion that he was risking his life. However, Han Fei didn't see Little Fatty make a breakthrough. He wondered if Little Fatty had the ability to be reborn from a single drop of blood after the breakthrough. He could only take a gamble. However, Han Fei seemed to have won the gamble. At this moment, in the spirit awakening fluid, Han Fei's flesh and bones began to gather from where they were scattered. There was no telling if it was because the pieces of flesh and bones were there, or if it was the power of the 9 death soul splitting octopus in the first place. In any case, it was a good thing that his body was recovering. Not just Han Fei, but Little Fatty was recovering too. However, its body was even larger than Han Fei's, and it only had 1 claw left. After 7 days, The pressure that Chun Huangdian left was thinner and thinner under the baptism of the ocean. At this moment, some creatures were already within 3,000 kilometers. The most powerful creatures could already approach 2,000 kilometers. Han Fei's body had been completely reconstructed, but he didn't wake up yet. Little Fatty's body was only half recovered, but Little Fatty was already alive. To be more precise, 5 of its brains were alive, and 4 of them hadn't been revived yet. Only one of its hearts was alive. The second one was being rescued, and the third one was still dead. The octopus was undoubtedly the most terrifying among the strange creatures with 9 brains. Half a month passed. When a crab just entered the cave, a tentacle directly wrapped around it, and a huge suction cup instantly sucked the crab dry. Han Fei was still motionless. In the middle of chaos, a vine extended from the darkness, like a ray of light in the darkness. The moment the vine appeared, Han Fei's consciousness returned. A lot of pictures flashed in Han Fei's head. Cough! Han Fei suddenly opened his eyes and sat up. The first thing he saw was the remains of a lot of creatures, as well as Little Fatty that was sucking a lobster with its suckers. Seeing that Han Fei sat up, Little Fatty looked at him with its big eyes. "You're awake?" Still in shock, Han Fei looked at Little Fatty in shock. "I've been resurrected." Then, information popped up in Han Fei's eyes. Name: 9-death soul, splitting octopus, introduction, an ancient species with a feeble bloodline of a divine beast. Its suckers can absorb spiritual energy, and essence blood. The 9-death soul, splitting octopus has a high spiritual power. It can ignore the mental attacks of all creatures within 10 levels of itself. It's also very strong and can deflect 90% of the attacks. It also has a super self-healing ability. Level 40 quality, legendary, upgradable. Spiritual energy 6002, food, carnivorous. Prefers shrimps and crabs, battle technique, limb regeneration, blood rebirth. Note, this is a battle technique shared by the host and the 9-death soul splitting octopus. It can only be used 9 times in a lifetime. Han Fei took a deep breath. "How long have I been dead?" Little Fatty. Han Fei was probably the first person in the world to ask such a casual question, as if he were asking someone how long he had been asleep. Little Fatty said, "It's been the 21st day since I woke up." Han Fei narrowed his eyes. "Not bad. Not bad. Chun Huangdian must have taken Xiaochan away a long time ago." Han Fei couldn't help but feel lucky. Thankfully, Little Fatty's blood rebirth wasn't a lightning resurrection after death. Otherwise, he would have been killed again. However, Han Fei's heart immediately grew heavy. Xiaochan had been taken away. What should he say when he returned? That Xiaochan had been taken away? That there was a super expert as terrifying as Chun Huangdian in this world? That such an expert hadn't killed him yet? Han Fei felt that it was rather ridiculous. For the first time in his life, he realized that a person could be so strong. It turned out that a mountain could be easily moved away. It turned out that he wasn't a heavenly talent at all. Han Fei wasn't an idiot. When he fought Chun Huangdian, he clearly sensed that Chun Huangdian had been using the power of an intermediate hanging fisher the whole time. Nothing more, nothing less. As it turned out, the combat techniques and ultimate moves that he was proud of were only qualified to be called a heavenly talent by Chun Huangdian in the end. Han Fei didn't complain. It wasn't easy for him to be alive. Although Xiaochan had been taken away, it was a good thing that she had been taken away. Otherwise, other experts would have come to search for her or even hunt her down after the heavenly cicada's 3 earth-shaking shrieks. From Chun Huangdian's tone, it seemed that killing him was necessary. What was he worried about? Was he worried that other people would learn about Xiaochan from him? At this moment, 20 days had passed. It might have been a month. Nobody seemed to be coming. However, Han Fei felt that they would come sooner or later. How could he resist them if they did come? If they were all as strong as Chun Huangdian, not to mention resisting them, even the entire Thug Academy might not be enough. Therefore, Han Fei had 2 top priorities: to hide himself and to improve his strength. While Han Fei was thinking, a glitter suddenly flashed in his eyes. As he turned his head, he found that it was a light blue drop of water. Information popped up in his eyes. Name: Mermaid's Tear. Introduction. This is a legendary item of longevity. It's the tear of mermaids and mermen when they're in extreme sorrow. It's neither metal nor stone, and it contains the will of the world and gives birth to terrifying vitality. Note: eternal love can't be destroyed. Seeing the tear, Han Fei's heart was heavy, and an inexplicable sadness took over his heart. Hehe. Chun Huangdian. Third watch. Asking for votes. Actually, it's already the fourth watch. It's already past midnight. Description: don't think that this kind of thing is just a joke. It's just an old routine. There's no such thing as a coincidence. The main thing is how it's written. Trust me, it's not what you think. As for the great calamity, take a guess. End of this chapter. Chapter 739. Chun Huangdian's formidability was deeply imprinted in Han Fei's heart. Han Fei had reason to believe that this person was the most terrifying and talented of all the people he had ever met. Outside the cave, there would still be creatures coming in, but Han Fei didn't care. He sat in the cave for a full 2 hours. He had always felt that the demon purification pot, the ability to deduce countless cultivation techniques, and the ability to interforge the universe seemed to be his trump card. But now, looking at the demon purification pot that had returned to his head, he finally realized that trump cards were only relative. Only one's own strength was absolute. Crack! The spiritual energy in Han Fei's body flowed backward in an instant, and he became an advanced hanging fisher in one step. There were less than 10,000 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid left at his feet. Little Fatty had eaten 5,000 kilograms, and there was less than 5,000 kilograms left. Han Fei didn't stand on ceremony and simply swallowed it into his body like a whale. A moment later, a message appeared. Owner: Han Fei level 48, advanced hanging fisher, spiritual energy 1060055 15369, spirit 1912 perception 19,999 meters, spiritual heritage LV5, high grade spiritual beast, twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish, level 40. Main art: void breaking technique, volume 4 of void fishing. Demon level, divine quality. When he saw this message, Han Fei was expressionless. Less than 5,000 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid was no longer enough to meet his needs. Han Fei found that the spirit awakening fluid might be of great use. It could help ordinary fishermen awaken their spiritual beasts, help ordinary people cleanse their bodies, and enhance their potential. However, as he grew stronger, he needed more and more spirit awakening fluid. This was probably why the experts of the Scattered Stars Island sold the spirit awakening fluid in the logistics division. Han Fei seemed to be enlightened. If he wanted to become a peak-level hanging fisher with the spirit awakening fluid, he would need at least 30,000 caddies. What if his spiritual meridian improved? What if the starless body broke through again? In that case, he would need more spirit awakening fluid. For example, how much spirit awakening fluid did Xia Xiaochan consume to awaken the heavenly cicada? It must be at least 60 to 70,000 gene, or 70 to 80,000 gene. That was when Xia Xiaochan was only an intermediate hanging fisher. Han Fei looked inside himself. The seed had calmed down, and so had the demonic essence. Han Fei believed that neither of them would be of much use if he didn't learn the true spirit demonic scripture. After all, no matter how powerful these two were, they were still absorbing demonic chi. At the very least, he couldn't use them for now. It seems that it's time to deduce the Thousand Faces technique and void fishing art. Han Fei even put the deduction of the Thousand Faces technique before the void fishing art. He guessed that if he used a disguise technique like appearance-changing technique again, would his aura be hidden as well? After all, for Xia Xiaochan's safety and his own, Han Fei had to make such a plan. Let's go out. Han Fei looked at Little Fatty calmly and said casually. Little Fatty was rather indifferent. There are powerful creatures outside. And, with a thought, Han Fei put away Little Fatty. The next moment, he was already standing at the entrance of the cavern. He released his senses and found countless creatures within 40 kilometers. He didn't even need to see with his naked eyes to see that there were more than 30 level 49 creatures within 1,000 meters. 2 of them were exotic creatures. Most of them were crabs, earth-drilling worms, and lobsters. At this moment, they were all digging holes. Why were they digging holes? Naturally, it was because a lot of spiritual stones were hidden in the Sea Demon Mountain. Earlier, Han Fei didn't dare to dig out the spiritual stones due to the large number of half-mermaids and half-mermaids, so he didn't get many spiritual stones. But now, half of the mountain had been torn apart by Chun Huangyan. Half of the mountain had been uprooted, and a lot of regular spiritual stones were scattered. Naturally, Chun Huangyan wasn't interested in those things. However, the other creatures in the sea didn't despise them. Naturally, Han Fei didn't despise them either. However, after such a long time, they must have all been dug out, right? Hew. The 2 tentacles left 2 white marks in the water like 2 whips. The enemy was trying to kill Han Fei. Han Fei sneered. Without looking, he punched casually, and a golden fist aura was blown hundreds of meters away. Not only was the long-haired lobster shattered, but a black fish was also shattered by the punch. If the people on the Scattered Stars Island saw that, they would have exclaimed in shock, as those 2 were level 49 creatures. He had actually been killed by a single punch. Han Fei had a deeper understanding of the art of invincibility during the battle against Chun Huangyan. It was mainly because Chun Huangyan was too invincible, and Han Fei intended to fake his death, so he wasn't scared of death at all. At the critical moment, when Han Fei punched the art of invincibility for the last time, he knew that the art of invincibility had made significant progress. In that battle, Han Fei felt that his art of invincibility wasn't very good, but it wasn't far from it. Not to mention killing a level 49 creature with 1 punch, Han Fei didn't think it would be a problem for him to kill a level 49 half-mermaid with 1 punch. There was no telling where the Sea Demon Mountain had been moved to. With a thought, Han Fei summoned Little Gold, the 9-tailed mantis shrimp, Little Black, and Little White. They had all changed their appearances. A series of information popped up in his eyes. Name, twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish. Introduction. This is a descendant of the mysterious primeval yin-yang sky swallowing fish. The black and white fish live together. The white fish is docile, and the black fish is brutal. They are symbiotic. As long as one of them survives, the other won't die. Level 40 quality, mysterious, stored spiritual energy greater than 10 million points, food omnivorous. It can swallow anything. Battle technique, supreme yin-yang wheel, spirit swallowing body. Note, the black fish can't be seen. Except for the master, only the yin-yang divine eyes born by nature can see it. After the fusion, its combat ability will be as high as a divine weapon's. Stored soul energy greater than 1,245 points. Han Fei frowned after seeing Little Black and Little White. They didn't have any special heritages. Their sizes didn't change at all. However, Little Black was even purer, as if he had turned into nothingness. There was even a vague layer of spiritual energy on Little White's body. Through the eyes of true vision, Han Fei saw that spiritual energy was slowly gathering into Little White's body. It meant that Little White could absorb spiritual energy all the time without doing anything. Is this the spirit swallowing body? This passive skill doesn't seem to be very useful. Han Fei thought. Little White's speed of absorbing spiritual energy is even slower than a small spirit gathering circle. Did it awaken this skill when it reached level 40? On the other hand, the 9-tailed mantis shrimp had changed a lot. Name, 9-tailed mantis shrimp. Introduction, a mutant mantis shrimp with fast speed and strong attack ability. It is good at hiding itself and sneaking up on prey. When it grows into its complete form, its 9 tails will turn into 9 divine chains, and it will be extremely powerful. Level 40 quality, legendary, stored spiritual energy greater than 5,026 points, food omnivorous, prefers shrimps, battle technique, void chain, note, current state, 9 tails. Han Fei pointed at a wolf crab that was swooping at him and glanced at the nine-tailed mantis shrimp. Kill it with the void chain. Swish! Swish! Han Fei saw that the 9-star chains seemed to have penetrated the void and appeared from 100 meters away. The 9 chains formed a net, which seemed to be a taboo law born from nothingness, trapping the wolf crab. The chains shuttled and slid in the void, fastening the wolf crab tighter and tighter. At the beginning, the wolf crab could still launch attacks, and its pincers and thorns could burst out to attack the chains. Then, as if the chains had eyes, they appeared from another place in the void and fastened its pincers. Crack! Crack! Although there was a huge gap between the two end levels, the 9-tailed mantis shrimp's void chain completely suppressed the enemy's attack. As the chains contracted crazily, it only took about 5 minutes to strangle a level 49 wolf crab. Seeing this scene, Han Fei was very satisfied. He should be quite far away from the Scattered Stars Island. So even if he encountered ordinary creatures, there were many level 49 creatures. Although the 9-tailed mantis shrimp was a bit slow, it deserved to be a legendary creature. Besides, after the transformation, it was no longer an ordinary chain, but countless chains. Then he looked at Little Gold. Name, Feather God Ray, Introduction, an ancient exotic species that belongs to the flying fish family. It has wings and feet that are as sharp as blades and can break gold and stones. The Feather God, Ray, can fly in the sky and dive into the sea. Its speed is extremely fast, and its head is as hard as a mountain. When it grows into its complete form, it can gather the power of heavenly thunder. Level 40, Quality, Legendary, Ultra Quality. Contains spiritual energy 5806, food carnivorous. Prefers large fish, battle technique, lightning blade. Can only be used once a day. Remarks, current status. Growth period. Han Fei couldn't help but be suspicious. In summary, it seemed that only Little Gold had a new battle technique. Han Fei said, "Little Gold, kill that weird horseshoe worm with a lightning blade." In front of Han Fei, a swarm of red horseshoe worms was charging at him. The horn on Little Gold's head flickered with lightning. The bright lightning condensed into a dazzling light. Hula! A huge electric arc machete 30 meters long suddenly slashed out more than 600 meters. All the creatures along the way were cut in half. Also, they were entangled by electric arcs. To Han Fei's astonishment, Little Gold's attack smashed as many as 30 horseshoe worms and more than 20 other creatures. Wow, what a powerful battle technique. First update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 740. Han Fei was shocked by Little Gold's lightning blade. In addition to having a hard head, Little Gold only had the advantage of being fast. But the appearance of this lightning blade directly raised Little Gold's combat power to a higher level. If Shao Chun caught someone off guard and used this move, its might would be even stronger than Shao Chen's drawing the saber at full power. It was a pity that such an amazing skill could only be used once a day. Therefore, in a real battle, the lightning blade could only be used as a trump card and could only be used as a last resort. Obviously, Han Fei didn't intend to let them fight against thousands of high-level sea creatures. After all, Little Gold and the others were still a little far behind these creatures. A short burst of energy was meaningless in the face of such a large number of creatures. So Han Fei put away Little Gold. Attach. The 9-tailed mantis shrimp and Little Fatty attached to him, and Han Fei's aura directly rose to the level of a peak-level hanging fisher. Han Fei felt as if he had become a fierce beast full of power. Looking at the creatures rushing over, there was only fanaticism and hostility left in his heart. Boom! The art of invincibility was activated, and an arrow heartshell was blown through by Han Fei. Qilu! A huge electric current surged through Han Fei's body, causing his blood to boil and his flesh to go numb. Boom, boom, boom. It was an exotic creature, a lamprey. Han Fei didn't hold back at all, and the art of invincibility shone brightly. Han Fei was like a murderer standing on the top of a mountain, and from all directions, a huge number of enemies were surging over. Those creatures who were still digging holes and looking for spiritual stones, attracted by the blood and the vibration, also swarmed over. Han Fei's eyes were fierce. As far as he was concerned, all of these living beings were spiritual energy. Kill. 3 days later, in the body of a big fish more than 80 meters long, golden light burst out, and countless fist marks blasted out of the big fish, leaving a horrifying bloody hole. Bam! A figure covered in blood crawled out of the bloody hole, full of murderous intent. Han Fei had been fighting for 3 days in a row. After fighting for 3 whole days, his killing intent finally subsided. At this time, he really couldn't fight anymore. Otherwise, Han Fei wouldn't have been swallowed by the fish. Looking at this big fish that had no spiritual energy at all, Han Fei spat, swam forward for more than 500 kilometers, disappeared, and reappeared and forged the universe. After 3 days of killing, Han Fei had killed no less than 5,000 sea creatures. At this moment, Forge the Universe was almost full. The good thing was that Han Fei absorbed about 30 million points of spiritual energy. In addition to his own 5 million points, he had 35 million points. At this time, he should have enough spiritual energy to deduce the 1,000 Faces technique. He put the 1,000 Faces technique first because he desperately wanted to hide his aura. Otherwise, if the crisis that Chen Huang mentioned came, he would probably still be killed. Deduce. After 1 million points of spiritual energy, the 1,000 Faces technique became a heaven-level, low-quality 1,000 illusions technique. Han Fei didn't think illusion was enough. With 5 million points of spiritual energy, the 1,000 illusion technique became the heaven-level, high-quality phantom spirit treasure record. It was still an illusion technique, but it could disguise one's height, weight, and breath. Unfortunately, Han Fei felt that it was still not good enough. If a powerful sea demon popped up in the deep sea, the illusion technique might not be able to confuse it. After 10 million points of spiritual energy, the Phantom Spirit Treasure Record became the heaven-level, divine quality 3 transformation wondrous book. After further deduction, the spiritual energy became 50 million points, and Han Fei couldn't deduce anymore. However, the 3 transformation wondrous book was enough. Han Fei glanced at it in shock. A string of information popped up. 3 transformation wondrous book, heaven level, divine quality. Note, this is a wonder of observing the evolution of creatures. It has the ability of phantom spirit 1,000 changes. There are 3 ways to evolve and mutate, which can perfectly deduce the 3 creatures and simulate their breaths. It will take 7 days after the mutation before it can undergo another mutation. Shortcoming 1. The mutation process is quite painful. It's easy to expose the aura of the original body in a life and death situation. Shortcoming 2. The progress is very slow when practicing the sea demon arts or combat techniques. Shortcoming 3. The 3 transformation wondrous book doesn't contain the language of sea demons. Mutated creatures. Regular sea demons, red demons, half mermaids deduced art, unknown deduction cost, 0/50, 000. When he saw the news, Han Fei gasped. He had always thought that the fish transformation technique was the right way to turn a human into a demon. However, after spending billions of dollars, he found that it seemed to be a path of cultivation. However, Han Fei didn't expect that he would accidentally deduce the 3 transformation wondrous book from the 1,000 Faces technique, and that he could directly turn into a sea demon. It was completely beyond Han Fei's expectation. But on second thought, Han Fei was stunned. Who said that it was harder for a human to turn into a sea demon than it was for a human to turn into a fish? An epiphany flashed in Han Fei's head. He had been influenced by the fish transformation technique for a long time and seemed to have been misguided. Once, Han Fei thought that fish would turn into sea demons after a human turned into a fish. But on second thought, he realized that the difference between a human and a fish was much greater than the difference between a human and a sea demon. Then, it should be easier for a human to turn into a sea demon, but more difficult for a human to turn into a fish or other creatures, right? Thinking of this, Han Fei instantly understood. No wonder the fish transformation technique was still a way for a living creature to turn into a demon, not a way for a human to turn into a demon. In fact, between human beings and the fish transformation technique, there should be a technique similar to the 3 transformation wondrous book. You had to turn yourself into a sea demon or a marine creature before you could practice the top techniques, such as the true spirit demonic scripture and the demon heritage divine technique. Han Fei was rather shocked. If he followed such a process, he should be able to turn into a pure sea demon after deducing the 3 transformation wondrous book again. By then, the drawbacks of cultivation would be solved. He could also be like a sea demon and normally practice the sea demon's cultivation methods and combat skills. Han Fei couldn't help but be tempted. Therefore, the human personification technique and the demon spirit transformation were purely techniques for sea demons to turn into human beings. The 3 transformation wondrous book, on the other hand, was a technique for human beings to transform into sea demons. As it turned out, the method to turn into a sea demon had always been with him. Looking at the remaining 19 million points of spiritual energy, Han Fei couldn't help but frown. He didn't have enough spiritual energy. Now, there was still a long way to go before he could reach 50 million points of spiritual energy. Han Fei didn't have such a feeling before. After all, he had plenty of spiritual fruits, spiritual spring, and spiritual stones. As a result, he lost most of his possessions on this trip. The blue sea wandering dragon daggers were gone. The blood-drinking knife was gone. His spiritual energy was gone. He didn't have any spirit awakening fluid, and Xia Shaochan was forcibly taken away. Except for the slight improvement in his strength, Han Fei felt that he hadn't accomplished any of the things he wanted to do. Son of AB *T-Sich, Han Fei cursed and looked at the 3 transformation wondrous book. Will it be easier for me to travel in the sea if I become an inferior manfish? I can change back in 7 days anyway. If worst comes to worst, I'll just change back. Han Fei was tempted. If he became an inferior manfish, his aura would be gone. Nobody would have thought that he would become a sea demon from a human being, right? In such a way, even if someone came looking for him, they wouldn't be able to find him. More than an hour passed. Oh, Han Fei rolled on the ground, feeling that all the bones in his body were broken. His veins were all broken, and his flesh and blood seemed to be grinded by a millstone. Damn it, why is it so painful? I just don't have enough spiritual energy. But Han Fei felt that he had been minced into pieces. Had he known that it would be so painful, he would have saved more spiritual energy to continue deducing the 3 transformation wondrous book. Then, he would have tried to cultivate. However, it was too late now. After another half an hour, Han Fei felt that he was about to pass out from the pain. However, probably because of his strong spiritual power, Han Fei couldn't pass out at all. So, it was quite a pain in the ass for Han Fei. Who? Han Fei saw that his body had changed. A thick layer of wrinkles appeared on his body. His legs were degenerating, his hands became deformed, and webs grew on his palms. Then, Han Fei found that his breathing method had changed too. Not only could he breathe through his mouth, but under his ears there were also 3 gill-like structures that seemed to have been cut by a knife. Han Fei grabbed a knife as a mirror and looked at himself before he threw the knife away. Shoot, isn't this 2F** King ugly? Han Fei stood up. As a human being, Han Fei hadn't gotten used to the inferior manfish's way of walking. Han Fei almost fell down when he stood still. Finally, Han Fei regained his balance and looked at himself up and down. His body was blue and as smooth as fish skin, and he felt disgusted when he touched it. Han Fei was lost for words. Wasn't he too different from Xia Shaochan? Although he knew that regular sea demons were ugly in the first place, Han Fei couldn't help but complain when he saw how ugly he had become. Forget it. I don't need to look in the mirror when I'm a sea demon. Han Fei didn't notice that he seemed to be slightly different from regular inferior manfish. All in all, Han Fei only felt that he was ugly, nothing more. At this moment, Han Fei's skin was pure and glossy. For a person who had never been a siren, there was nothing special about it. As Han Fei's eyebrows moved, the 9-tailed mantis shrimp, Little Black and Little White appeared. Little Black and Little White didn't feel anything at all. Although they were a little curious when they saw Han Fei's changed appearance, they still came over. The nine-tailed mantis shrimp looked at Han Fei for a long time and rubbed Han Fei suspiciously with its chain. Han Fei went up and kicked it. However, he didn't use his strength well. Although the inferior manfish had legs, they were too deformed and not as useful as human legs. Therefore, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp didn't feel any pain, but Han Fei felt pain for a long time. However, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp immediately came over. His master was still the same master, and his habit of kicking the shrimp was still the same. Seeing that little black, little white, and the nine-tailed mantis shrimp still recognized him, Han Fei had no worries. Then he sensed his mind and dantian and found that the demon purification pot, the seed, the demonic energy, and the heaven spirit detoxifying insect were all there, so he was more relieved. It seemed that it was only his body that had changed. Han Fei immediately grabbed the golden seal and tried to channel spiritual energy into it. However, Han Fei found that what burst out was demonic energy, and he couldn't easily control the golden seal. Han Fei frowned. There were so many harpoons in Forge the Universe. How many half-mermaids, red demons, and inferior manfish have been killed by him? So, there were a lot of harpoons. Han Fei grabbed a harpoon casually and activated his spiritual energy. He injected demonic energy into it and stabbed it fiercely. It's the same as using spiritual energy. It's quite easy. Second, asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 741. Half a day passed. Standing on the surface of a boundless ocean, Han Fei scratched his head with his webbed paws. Where the hell was the Scattered Stars Island? Although Han Fei wasn't ready to return to the Scattered Stars Island yet, he needed a direction, right? The Sea Demon Mountain had been uprooted, and the top of the mountain had been moved far away. Han Fei summoned Little White to find the way, but Little White was lost. After all, it had never been to this place and didn't know where the way was. Han Fei bared his teeth. It seems that it's too far away. Fine, I'll stay away from the Sea Demon Mountain first. In Han Fei's eyes, the Scattered Stars Island wasn't safe. If an expert came, the Scattered Stars Island would definitely be discovered. If the other party was a murderer, it was possible that he would destroy the Scattered Stars Island. So he couldn't go back. At the bottom of the ocean, Han Fei couldn't have felt better. As it turned out, it was quite cool to breathe with gills at the bottom of the ocean. That feeling was like a person breathing through their mouth. It was completely natural. At this moment, Han Fei was riding an exotic silver shark, not a long-snout silver shark. The silver shark was infuriated and struggling. Silver thorns burst out of its body now and then, trying to stab Han Fei. Bam! Han Fei hammered down with his fist. Calm down. You're not even a long-snout silver shark, and you dare to challenge me? Do you want to be a hot pot ingredient? Hundreds of kilometers later, Han Fei saw a golden beach at the bottom of the ocean. His intuition told him that there must be treasures down there. Immediately, Han Fei slapped the silver shark under his butt and lunged at the golden sand. He was holding a small harpoon in his hand, which looked quite decent. As Han Fei released his perception, he was overjoyed. Another spiritual fruit. I don't see any guardian creatures. Forget it. They're probably out looking for food. Han Fei dived into the golden beach. However, when he was about to pick the spiritual fruit, the golden sand moved. A sand dragon suddenly rolled up and rose like a sea serpent. In a patch of sand, Han Fei saw a golden bug. The worm was wrapped in the sand and opened its mouth that was full of tusks. This guy's pretty good at disguising himself. The sand was sliding down, as if a curtain had been lifted in the dark night. When the giant worm rolled, its body was nearly 100 meters long. In the gaps between the grains of sand, a dozen big mouths opened one after another, as if they wanted to swallow Han Fei alive. F***CK. What the hell is this? Information appeared in his eyes. Name, Golden Sandworm. Introduction. Born in the sea of sand at the bottom of the sea full of Gungjin Shi, it has an explosive personality, great strength, and wears an armor of sand. The golden sand silkworm's killing power could reach 5 million kilograms, and it could control the golden sand to fight for it. Level 52 quality exotic contains spiritual energy greater than 11,302 points. Effect: inedible collectible golden sandstone. Absorbable. Han Fei was stunned. It seemed that he couldn't defeat a level 52 creature with his current inferior manfish body. Logically speaking, with Han Fei's current strength, it shouldn't be a big problem for him to fight level 52 creatures. However, Han Fei, who was holding the harpoon, twisted his body dozens of times and dodged the whip, but he was still slapped away by the golden sandworm's tail. He rolled dozens of times in the water and flew hundreds of meters away. Cough. It's really strong. Han Fei felt that his blood was boiling. After he turned into a sea demon, he seemed to have no advantage in fighting creatures of the level of hidden fissures with his body alone. Yes, the combat techniques of human beings had become experience. In order to use them with demonic chi, he had to adapt to this body. But fortunately, the golden sandworm wasn't very strong. At this moment, Han Fei wanted to see if he could use the majestic mystic spell and other combat techniques with the body of an inferior manfish. Attach. Little Fatty attached himself to Han Fei, and the effect was almost the same as when he attached himself to a human body. It was almost like a sea demon summoning a companion spirit. However, when Han Fei tried to attach himself to the nine-tailed mantis shrimp, he found that he couldn't. A sea demon can only attach itself to one contractual spiritual beast? The center of his eyebrows flashed. Little black, little white, and little gold could still appear, but the attachment wouldn't work at all. Han Fei wondered if he could still fuse with little black or little white. Whatever. Let's fight first. The golden sandworm roared, and masses of golden sand came at Han Fei from all directions. It could control the sand for its own use. Bam! The harpoon smashed across the air and the yellow sand exploded, but some of the yellow sand still stuck to Han Fei. 100 seconds later, Han Fei was covered in a layer of sand. The sand was tightening, as if it were trying to strangle Han Fei. Bam! Han Fei was slapped away by the tail again. Han Fei only felt a little dizzy after the force was removed. Damn it! How do inferior manfish fight? Poke with harpoons? Han Fei recalled that regular inferior manfish only poked with harpoons. Red demons had life spears, and half-mermaids had all kinds of combat techniques. Han Fei cursed. Worm, eat my harpoon. The blood-drinking knife was destroyed. Han Fei tried to fill the harpoon with spiritual energy and demonic chi and slashed it as a long knife. Swoosh! The weird and dominating, invincible fighting intent was gathered on the harpoon. It seemed that any attack could carry the effect of the art of invincibility. Chilla! Bam! Although Han Fei was slapped away, the golden sandworm was cut into halves by Han Fei's harpoon. It was killed so easily? While Han Fei was wondering, he found that the sandworm that had been cut into halves had a new head and turned into two golden sandworms. Han Fei was briefly stunned and chuckled. You must be bragging. Who do you think you are? You want to split yourself? In his eyes, the strength of a single golden sandworm became 5 million kilograms. It meant that a new golden sandworm would have half of the strength of a golden sandworm in its prime state. Han Fei thought of something. Nine-tailed mantis shrimp, void chains. The void around the two golden sandworms began to tremble as chains appeared one after another, trying to trap the golden sandworms within them. Unfortunately, the golden sandworms were just sand. They simply swam out of the cage of chains without any fear of the void chains. The two golden sandworms bit at Han Fei at the same time. Lightning blade. Chilla. Electric arcs burst out of Little Gold's head, and a terrifying blue blade cut one of the sandworms from head to tail. The sand exploded, and a cluster of thick, golden liquid spread in the seawater, only to be swallowed by the other sandworm. Han Fei looked at the other sandworm, only to find that it had a strength of 3 million kilograms. It meant that Little Gold's lightning blade must have killed half of the sandworms. Han Fei was amused by the result. The golden sandworm wasn't actually very powerful, but it looked very intimidating. In fact, they would be weaker and weaker after some of them were destroyed. Han Fei snorted. Nine-tailed mantis shrimp, go grab the spiritual fruit. Don't eat it yourself. The nine-tailed mantis shrimp swooshed at the sand. The golden sandworm grew anxious. It split into half and stopped the nine-tailed mantis shrimp. Han Fei smiled again. Han Fei smiled again. Little gold, go grab the fruit too. The golden sandworm. Han Fei simply stomped on the ground and activated the majestic mystic spell. Although he didn't know any harpoon techniques, he could still use the harpoon as a saber. Shwa! Shwa! The golden sandworm was cut in half, and the other one managed to stop Little Gold and the nine-tailed mantis shrimp. However, to the golden sandworm's shock, the spiritual fruit was gone. Han Fei extended his hand gloatingly, and Little Black spat out the spiritual fruit in midair. Name Golden Fruit Introduction. It grows in the golden sandpit and has been nurtured by the gunmetal chi for a long time. It has a strong fighting spirit and a great enhancement effect. Level, demon level, quality, high, spiritual energy greater than 189,800 points. Effect, it can permanently increase one's strength by 50,000 kilograms if eaten. It's not effective for creatures above the level of hidden fissures. Han Fei's eyes glittered when he saw the quality of the golden fruit. It could permanently increase one's strength by 50,000 kilograms. This golden fruit was very powerful. It was not just 1 or 2 kilograms, but 50,000 kilograms. Bye, big guy. I can't kill you. I'll eat the fruit for you. As he spoke, Han Fei had already stuffed the golden fruit into his mouth. Why would he keep such a good thing if he didn't eat it now? After Han Fei swallowed the golden fruit, the golden sandworm went on a rampage, and the sand seemed to be reacting. However, Han Fei grinned and left the golden sandworm's shadow in the water. Defeating the golden sandworm was nothing to be proud of. It wasn't a creature that was good at fighting. Most importantly, the golden sandworm wasn't sand. It seemed infuriated, but some sand actually ran into the sand, and it was rather troublesome to find it. However, it also stimulated Han Fei's imagination. He had run into such a great thing as the golden fruit when he was wandering around. If he stayed longer in the outer sea, he could probably increase his strength by 20% just by searching for spiritual fruits. No wonder the half-mermaids and half-mermaids are so strong. The reason is that the resources in the ocean are too abundant, and they've eaten their way to the top. Another 3 days passed. Han Fei ran into a lot of creatures, some of which were so powerful that he had to run away the moment he saw them. Some of them weren't strong enough, but he could still rob them. At this moment, Han Fei was sitting on the back of the nine-tailed mantis shrimp with Needle in his hand. Why was he carrying Needle? Because he had just fought an exotic serpent. Han Fei couldn't defeat it, so he fled. Also, he didn't want to use the harpoon anymore, which was not as useful as his fists and Needle. No, I had to learn some sea demon battle techniques. Suddenly, Han Fei perceived that a shadow was spilling out of an undersea cave more than 60 kilometers away. Immediately, Han Fei's eyes glittered. A treasure trove. 3rd chapter. Asking for votes. Add chapters at around 7. Who told you that it's the way to find a wife? Also, a lot of things were useless when Han Fei died. They didn't work when he used them, so they were useless. Think about it. If I save Xia Xiaochan, there will only be more and more problems later. Besides, resurrection requires both the big octopus and the host to be resurrected. 2 lives. Need monthly votes. Add chapters for the new leader at around 7. End of this chapter. Chapter 742. To the new leader, Maple, updated. The secret realms in the unknown place were actually very well hidden. Han Fei had been wandering here for a long time, but he hadn't encountered a decent secret realm. The secret realm in front of him was glowing, which was obviously quite extraordinary. Nine-tailed mantis shrimp, let's go. A man and a shrimp rushed away, and a large group of red fox fish passed by them. These days, Han Fei also found that not all the creatures in the ocean were fighting. Some of the creatures would regard the inferior manfish as their own kind and wouldn't attack them. It wasn't just the red fox fish, but also the flying fish and silver scale fish. After a while, Hanfei had already rushed to the front of the secret realm. However, before he rushed in, he saw a half-mermaid and two red demons rushing out of the secret realm. After the half-mermaid appeared, it was startled to see Han Fei rushing at it head-on. Han Fei was also taken aback. It turned out that this secret realm had been explored and a half-mermaid had come out of it. Han Fei quickly stopped the nine-tailed mantis shrimp and clenched the embroidery needle, thinking, if there's only this half-mermaid and two red demons, I should be able to kill them. However, the next moment, another half-mermaid appeared, which directly dispelled Han Fei's idea. If he were in his normal human form now, he might have already rushed up, but now, he was an inferior manfish, and his body hadn't fully adapted yet. In terms of fighting, he relied on brute force and little gold. If there was a half-mermaid heavenly talent here, he might be pressed to the bottom of the sea. The two red demons were about to attack, but they were stopped by the half-mermaid. The half-mermaid, chirp, Han Fei tilted his head. The other half-mermaid pointed at Han Fei. Chirp, Han Fei found that he couldn't understand it at all. What kind of weird language was this? Chirp, 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 and there was a string of bubbles when it spoke. Han Fei was wondering if his image had been ruined, so he immediately put away the nine-tailed mantis shrimp and the embroidery needle, gathered demonic energy under his feet, and considered whether to let little gold possess him and run away. However, in the next moment, a strange voice rang out in his mind. He didn't know how it happened, but it was imprinted in his mind, and he actually understood it. Inferior siren that has just awakened, don't be nervous. Submit to me, and I will teach you the siren language. Han Fei couldn't help feeling a little strange. In the past, all the half-mermaids he met were talking. He had never experienced this feeling before. The other party had somehow turned his spiritual power into a language and imprinted it in his mind. Han Fei thought for a moment and nodded quickly. The sirens had their own language. As long as he learned it, wouldn't he be able to blend in with the sirens in the future? It was said that the sirens had a lot of good stuff. If he just casually took some or killed these guys, he might be able to make a small fortune. Seeing this, the two half-mermaids laughed, but Han Fei found that their laughter was a bit weird. Relax your mind and don't resist. I will imprint the siren language into your soul. Han Fei was dumbfounded. You want to imprint it directly into my soul? Do I think your face is big? If you let go of your resistance, if the other party were to control you or do something to you, it would all be within the other party's control. Of course, Han Fei wouldn't be so stupid. Han Fei pretended to nod, ready to give them a fatal blow when they invaded his soul. Plus Little Gold's lightning blade that he hadn't used today, it shouldn't be a problem for him to kill the two half-mermaids. As for the two red demons, they were weaker than the half-mermaids, so Han Fei didn't think they could kill him. They were still hanging fishers. Even if this red demon was at its peak, he wasn't really an inferior manfish. Just when the other party was about to release its spiritual power and Han Fei was about to fight back, swish, another figure appeared, and Han Fei subconsciously stepped back, not because this person had just appeared, but because he knew the female half-mermaid opposite him. Yuji. Han Fei was a little stunned. How could he meet Yuji in such a place? Shouldn't this guy be near the Scattered Stars Island? But in this damn place, even Little White had lost the direction of the Scattered Stars Island. How could he still meet her? The point was that Yuji's strength was not ordinary. So relatively speaking, the other two half-mermaids were probably also heavenly talents. With his current strength, he might not be a match for them. Now that Yuji had appeared, it was even more unrealistic for Han Fei to kill these sea demons by himself. If he were still a human, he might have a try. However, Yuji was a half-mermaid with a real divine weapon and was extremely powerful. In his current state, it was almost impossible for him to kill the other party. As soon as Yuji appeared and saw Han Fei, she exclaimed in surprise, "Where did this azure sea blue demon come from?" Han Fei didn't understand what Yuji was talking about, but he could see her surprise. But what Han Fei couldn't figure out was that in the eyes of these half-mermaids, ordinary inferior manfish should be cannon fodder. Why was she surprised to see him? The other half-mermaids face changed slightly. Yuji, this should be a newly awakened azure sea blue demon. However, first come, first served. He's mine. Yuji frowned. You want to take him? Is he willing? The half-mermaid said to Hanfei via voice transmission again, relax your mind. I'll teach you the sea demon language. Hanfei's eyes flickered, and his two big eyes were full of vigilance and confusion, which made Yuji puzzled. The next moment, when Hanfei felt a spiritual power about to invade his soul, he immediately blocked it with his spiritual power. The opposite half-mermaid staggered, and a trace of blood spilled from the corner of its mouth. Be starred, you're courting death. The half-mermaid directly raised its harpoon and aimed at Hanfei. Hanfei knew that he couldn't beat it, so he'd better run away first. However, as soon as the half-mermaid raised its harpoon, it was slapped back by Yuji. Are you deliberately deceiving this azure sea blue demon? You want to invade his soul and make him your guard slave? The half-mermaid, who was knocked back, frowned. Yuji, first come, first served. I met this azure sea blue demon first. Do you want to rob him? Yuji sneered. Who gave you the courage to challenge my authority? Yu paused, seemed to think of something, and reluctantly lowered his head. Before Hanfei ran away, he saw that they were fighting among themselves. Is this for me? I'm not Yuji's relative. Why is Yuji helping me? Yuji turned around, threw a jade slip full of demonic energy at him, and imprinted her words in Hanfei's mind. Don't be fooled. You are an azure sea blue demon, and your status is not lower than his. Also, don't open your soul to others. This is a spiritual demon language. As long as you inject demonic energy into it, you can quickly learn the sea demon language. Hanfei was stunned. Azure sea blue demon? What's that? Wasn't he an inferior manfish? How did he suddenly become an azure sea blue demon? However, Hanfei's guess was right. The half-mermaid was trying to trick him into opening his soul. How vicious this man was. It seemed that he had to find a way to kill him. Hanfei wasn't afraid that there was something wrong with the jade slip given by Yuji. At least with the demon purification pot. He wasn't even afraid of possession, let alone a trap. Hanfei held the jade slip and perceived it with his spirit. After a while, a brand new language seemed to appear in his consciousness out of thin air. In just a few dozen breaths of time, he had already mastered new language. Yuji asked, do you understand now? You have just awakened. Don't trust others easily. This is the way to get into trouble. Of course, Hanfei understood. It seemed that the other party regarded him as a newly awakened sea demon. Hanfei was speechless. Can a newly awakened sea demon be as strong as me? Why don't they use their brains? However, Hanfei would rather they were stupid. At this moment, Hanfei bared his teeth and responded in a hoarse voice. I understand. Thank you. Yuji's eyes lit up. Huh, how did you manage to say it so quickly? And you can even say thank you. It seems that you are one of the stronger azure sea blue demons. Hanfei pretended to be vigilant. Azure sea, blue demon, what is it? Under the angry eyes of the other two half-mermaids, Yuji grinned. It'll take me a long time to explain. The azure sea blue demon was a type of sea demon that could grow its demonic meridians. Its potential was much higher than that of ordinary sea demons. Even ordinary red demons are not as good as you, unless they are crimson blood red demons. Even among the half-mermaids, no one dares to say that their potential is higher than yours. Hanfei pretended to be dumb and looked at the two red demons. Red demons? The two red demons looked unfriendly. In their opinion, azure sea blue demons were also ordinary sea demons. Why did they have a higher status than them? Yuji took 2 steps forward, and Hanfei immediately took 2 steps back. A half-mermaid said, Yuji, this newly awakened azure sea blue demon is not sensible. If you want to take him as your subordinate, you could just teach him a lesson. Yuji glanced at him coldly. Shut up. Hanfei was not stupid. The half-mermaid probably said that to warn him against Yuji. However, the half-mermaid had made it so obvious. How could he pretend that he didn't know anything? Immediately, Hanfei stepped back again, vigilantly looking at everyone, including Yuji. Yuji frowned slightly, glanced at the half-mermaid again, and then took out a harpoon and a jade slip and threw it over. Here are your weapons and combat skills. We are all sea demons. If you want to leave, I won't stop you. If you want to stay, you can follow me. Don't worry, I won't ask you to be my slave. Han Fei took the harpoon with one hand and thought, I still have a golden harpoon. This one is not good enough. However, as a newly awakened sea demon, he fully showed his curiosity at this moment. At this time, Han Fei held the jade slip and looked at it. After a moment, a piece of information appeared. Impermanent golden halberd, demon level, high quality. Introduction. This is a sea demon combat skill, divided into attack and defense. When attacking, it is like a star breaking the waves. When defending, it is like spinning water as a shield. Deduced art. Unparalleled water splitting halberd deduction cost. 0/2 million 4th update. Monthly votes. Crazily seeking monthly votes. End of this chapter.